Hello, everyone, and welcome to SmashBoxxTV's podcast 255. Terry Miller, the disc golf guy, along with Johnny V.
Yep, it's me.
Yeah, we are in the one place, I finally found it, the one place that's hotter than up and down the Toboggan Hills this weekend with 90% humidity. That's Johnny V's basement right now.
Yeah, it's kind of strange. As we've said, it's always been very cool down here in general. In the winter, it's a really nice temperature. In the summer, it tends to be cool, but for whatever reason, it's a little bit warm down here, and I don't know why. But it's not going to bother me.
Yeah, that's good. Good. Just like this weekend's 90-degree weather and 90% humidity did not bother you, I'm sure. Well,
oh, not at all.
The rest of the crew were out on the course. Of course, we're talking about the Great Lakes Open that went down this last weekend.
Did it?
We'll talk a little bit
I didn't
about
see it.
that
Don't spoil me,
with
bro.
Dana Vici. I'll be interested to see what he did or didn't consume from afar. Of course, coming off of a holiday weekend, it's always a little bit of give and take or unknown. And I think about Memorial Day weekend, Labor Day weekend, of course, 4th of July. It's always just kind of a roll of dice. Is it nice where you are? Are you sitting around watching with family? Are you out playing in a big tournament that given weekend? All of those weekends are what I feel like a little hit and miss. But when it was all said and done, now we had a great battle. We had great courses. We had the birthday boy, Paul Macbeth, who celebrates his 29th birthday today. But he was right in the thick of things,
29?
of course.
He's old. He's washed up.
He is. Hence that terrible new rating he's got. But again, it feels like you just never know what's going to happen with the young stage that our sport is in terms of live coverage, who's consuming it and how they're consuming it. I'd also be really interested to hear, just off the top of my head, I was thinking, what about Matt and Josh over at UDisc? I'd be curious to know how their numbers look this weekend. Again, there was a great battle that was unfolding. Two very, very popular gentlemen that were battling it out on the MPO side. Paige Pierce, on the other hand, didn't want to give the other women much of a chance. And she tried to close things out quite early and very handedly on the FPO side. We're hoping to catch up with Paige. As we speak, they're probably just wrapping up in Emporia at the Junior Worlds opening ceremonies, players meeting, opening ceremonies, that type of thing. In fact, it's probably done by now that it's 9 o'clock. Most of those kids should be in bed. I'm sure they're not, but they should be. And so she said that she had some obligations there, of course. I reached out to her and Bobby Brown and a number of the DD staff and said, I'd love to get a little update for what's going on down there in Emporia. I know that they had field events over the weekend and some divisional doubles. All of that kind of got kicked off. Tomorrow is the day singles play actually kicks off. So if we get any updates from the Junior Worlds, that would be awesome. Paige, I'm sure, will give us a little taste of that as well. And I will admit, I'm super excited. I travel there myself in 20-ish hours, less than that, more like 18 hours. I'll be heading down there myself, so I'll be able to consume Wednesday night, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday for the second time at Junior World. So I'm super excited, and I'd rather be there than here with you. I'm sure it's hotter here than it is in Emporia.
It probably is.
All right. We got Dynamite.
How many more times are you going to whine
I'm
about it?
going to whine the entire night until I am completely dripping with sweat.
Oh, God, I hope so.
And then I'm going to shake my head and the rest of my body, and it's going to go all over you. It'll be hot. Really hot. Talk about
sure
SmashBoxx moments.
Subreddit for that somewhere. Creepy.
All right, let's bring in Dynamite.
Boom goes the dynamite.
Hey, Dana, how you doing?
Oh, yeah, Dynamite. Good to have you. Oh, crashing in. Sliding in there, Dynamite. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing all right.
Okay.
It's been a long day on my end. It's hot out, and it's probably not as hot as Johnny V's basement. It feels pretty good in my room right now. My living room, that is. AC is pumping, Terry. Got the fan on.
Good.
Feels real good.
Yeah, I just feel Johnny's hot breath as he breathes on me. That's the only thing I'm getting right now. Quick shout out, Trace Kiersnowski and Jacob Stahl over at Disc Baron. Thank you guys, both super chatters already so early in the broadcast. Thank you guys. Shout out to Kevin and Cam Kiefer at Junior Worlds is what Trace had in the notes there. All right, Dana. Well, I feel like we haven't talked that much lately.
No, it's been a minute. You were off globe trotting and left me and Johnny high and dry. Johnny's going to Brewers games, and I'm sitting here at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday waiting for the big call, and it never comes. And my schedule didn't allow the other week, and so it's been a minute, but it's good to be back on with you two fine gentlemen.
How the servers at work holding up? I hear you guys are trying to sell stuff over there, and sometimes that goes really well, maybe too well.
What? I'm missing things.
You're alluding to the Cloud Breakers that were released last week. That was that was fun. Essentially, just didn't have enough to meet the demand. So
good problems to have, Dana. Good problems to have, unless you're customer service.
Yeah. This last release, it wasn't. We had already sold them to the dealer, so I'd already done the customer service side of things on that front. But yeah, unfortunately, a lot of hype and a lot of interest in the disc, and we just didn't have enough of them. But
that's great. It just means that the next time you guys mold up a whole bunch more, off the shelves they'll go.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to. I think the hopes are September-ish for a restock. So, and the hopes are to have much larger quantities available for everybody, so everyone can get out there and break their own clouds.
So the cloud breakers that are out there are the only ones that we're going to see until about September, correct?
Yeah, the next release will be
right.
in that ballpark. I don't want to say
around then, maybe late August, but whatever. So another
maybe whatever. But that's the goal. It's a good disc. It flies in the air, and that.
I've seen Eagle throw it. It seems to go very far.
I didn't see Barella ace with it. I watched him throw it. 0 aces. So I think the jury's out.
Yeah, but I don't know.
Yeah, what? Barella can't
far.
Reach the hole? Because
he can't reach hole 17. He's a little wimpy kid who cannot reach hole 17. We've seen him try twice. He was at least 120 out each time. Honestly.
Yeah. So, Dynamite, with it being a big holiday weekend, and I know you have lots of family, I think you even traveled into maybe Michigan, although you didn't get as far over to the east side of Michigan as we were you able to consume any of the Discraft Great Lakes Open this weekend? And if so, how did you consume it?
My consumption of DGLO was strictly UDisc Live. Just didn't really have the opportunity, and I knew there was a good battle going on, but I wasn't all that interested, which is weird to say, but I guess just being tied up with family and not having too much time to think about it kind of helped with that. But I was glued to the scores, but just didn't hop on. My favorite commentator, Terry and Dixon. Maybe if you guys were commentating, I would have been on. Just kidding. I love Yuli. But no, I just didn't have the opportunity to. So I was watching scores, and it started out early in the morning, which was nice with the FPO. Watching that to see if Paige, was going to continue shooting really good disc golf, which she did. Safe to say she's on a heater right now. Is that 4 in a row?
I think it's 5.
5, okay.
4 or 5, and then today she tweeted she posted not only that it was, but also the fact that it was that she found her putt again, and so she is clearly amped up and ready to go.
If that's true, and I have no reason to believe it wouldn't be, the rest of the field is screwed.
Yeah. I mean,
period. The two
Henna's going to come to town.
Well, I'm not talking Worlds. I'm talking the rest of the tour. And I mean, if Paige's game is complete, the rest of the field is out of luck no matter who comes. I don't care. And with Paige on the top of her game, I don't feel another FPO player can touch her, regardless of where they come from, whether they're European or American, if Paige is on her game. Now, we've seen both with Paige and Kat, both of them have issues with their putting game this year. Paige a little early on, Kat more recently, and it is it's kind of crazy. You know, watching that final round, Katrina missed, I think, 8 putts inside the circle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 inside the circle putts that final round. So that's 8 strokes on that one round. That's
that right there. That's
a lot.
For Katrina or anyone. That's demoralizing to throw the disc that well and then to not convert. I know that's been I've had problems with that over the last few years where I've am putting myself in position to score and then not putting it in the basket. We've seen Nico over the years struggle with his putting, where if he was just putting it in the basket, he's winning a bunch of tournaments. Which, by the way, good to see him back out on the Disc Golf Pro Tour again. But yeah, that's tough for Kat, and she's one of the greatest FPO disc golfers ever. So I suspect that she will bounce back out of it. Whether or not that comes before Worlds is another question. Sometimes all it takes is something to click, and all of a sudden you're back on track. But in my case and others that I've seen, it can take time, and it's a constant battle. But Paige is peaking. She kind of had that quiet-ish start to the season, and now is just with whether it's 4 or 5, even maybe 6, whatever wins in a row, she's feeling it right now. And if she keeps that hot hand with the putter, like Johnny said, the rest of the FPO division better watch out.
And isn't it kind of interesting? We're talking about this, and on a day that the ratings came out, and we'll talk about the MPO side a little later, and the new record-breaking MPO side. But the day the ratings come out, and we're saying where it feels like Paige is maybe hitting her mid-season stride, or she's found her putt, it shows her as she's rated second highest woman in the world at 970, and Katrina is actually at 973 right now. And of course, that's a little bit of a snapshot over the last month. And as we were just talking, you look at Paige's stats over the last 5 events. That includes 4 A-tiers and 1 NT, and she's got those 5 wins. Katrina, on the other hand, has 4 second places in her last 4 tournaments. So it's kind of funny to think about how, where we are, what the snapshot proves, and then also who will carry that said momentum, good or bad, for another 5-ish weeks, 4 to 5 weeks. I mean, if we're playing through Worlds, we're talking about 5 weeks. I want to say Worlds is listed as August 10th through the 17th and somewhere in that neighborhood. And here we are on July 9th. You're talking about, keeping things moving for a whole nother month.
Yeah. And but it's not out of the realm. We've seen, especially on the FPO side, where, Paige or Kat is ridden, a 4 or 5 month hot streak. And, in the case of Katrina a few years back, where she was basically, dominated all year long. But, right now is the Paige Pierce show. And you guys are going to I have to apologize on behalf of my wife.
I know she does pottery. She's probably, making something up right now. Firing up the kiln. I don't know.
Edith's little cups of ice cream that we have for her. It looks like Ashley's double fisted. No, she's not.
You could share some with Edith. Yeah.
Sleep on the couch tonight. It's all right. It's nice and cold down here.
Unlike my
But,
basement. Go ahead and say it, Tara.
Yes. Well, it will be very cool to see. And right now, Paige has 7 or 8 wins. What also, when you look at her stats, you can see that since Vegas, where she kind of openly said, I wasn't prepared, I didn't get myself ready for that event. You know, I slacked a little. Since Vegas, where she finished 7th, she has not finished outside the top 3. It's been, a couple of third places, but otherwise first and second place at every single event, which we've kind of grown to expect from her with the way that she plays. But she clearly is back on track.
It really felt like maybe she didn't put in a ton of work over the winter, and maybe she took a well-needed and well-deserved rest. Expanded. We saw she was traveling a lot, and that maybe just this is the time to ramp up. I mean, it's nice to come out of the gate and win, but that's a hard thing to do. Like Dana said, for 4, 5, 6 months. If you start out slow, there's no reason why you can't ramp up right around Worlds. Whereas it just seems like she's really found her game right now, and there's not another FPO player that's going to catch her. Even my favorite thing from this weekend was the second round FPO interview you did, Terry, with Lisa Fakis, where she was where you asked her, like, are you going to try to chase down Paige more or less? And she's like, no, I've got my eye on that second place. No one's catching Paige.
And she almost, yeah. And she ended up ultimately a stick behind Katrina. And that was going to be one of the things I brought up next was Lisa's, she really had if we're talking slow starts, her start to the season was subpar, or mostly over par maybe, but she's as of late playing some much better disc golf. Terry, I know you've probably watched as much or more FPO action over the last few years than anyone else. What is Lisa doing now that maybe she wasn't doing earlier this year? Or maybe what's she doing now that she was doing last year, or the year before, where we saw her really jump up in the rankings?
That's a great question, and in fact, it's almost I don't want to say a funny question. It's one that I can't answer, and here's why. When you're watching FPO, you're so dialed in and you're focused, and you're usually seeing lead card action more often than not. Lisa hasn't been there, and dare I say that's just the facts. She hasn't been on that card for me to see if she's underperforming, or if she's missing putts or missing her lines, or if her timing is off, or if she's tried a new form or any. I have not seen Lisa play very much golf all year long, and again, I don't want to say I'm only dialed and only ever focused on FPO league, but that's more often what I'm either recording or what we're viewing live, and so I don't know what wasn't clicking for her. I do know that I am just as shocked as anyone when I don't see her name up there. She became that third or fourth woman that was in the conversation every single weekend. It was Kat, Paige, Hokum, Lisa, or Lisa Hokum, or whatever. She was always there. And so there at one point this weekend, I thought to myself, okay, this feels like we've been here before with Lisa being in the conversation. And I'm sure Lisa feels good about that. I'm sure she would love to continue to ride that momentum. I'll tell you, one thing that she was doing very well, as we saw multiple times, just making her medium to long range putts. And she may be the best in the FPO, at least when she's on. She may be the best, even maybe better than Paige from some of those distances.
No doubt. I from 20 to about, I'd say 35 feet, I will take Lisa Fakis every single day over Paige Pierce.
Well,
and beyond that, like, Paige is deadly, as we've seen, from like 40 to 50 to 60 feet when she shouldn't be, but she is. And she just has that great jump putt. Lisa is so consistent right around that circle that you walk up and you just expect that to go in. And I still kind of have a little bit of butterflies when Paige steps up to that, or especially lately when Kat steps up to that. I don't think there's a question as to who is the best putter right around the circle right now, and it's Lisa.
Yeah, well, she was on in that regard, and I feel like she did obviously a lot of other things right. And even, that third place, as you mentioned, Dana, she was right there putting for the tie, so to speak, with Katrina. She missed the putt a little low, and then when that rolled away, she turned around and canned a putt that was just as long or longer, and that's exactly what she did on hole 16 a few holes prior. On Sunday that was as well. So it's great to see that she, even after a bad rollaway or a bad break, she focused. She always takes a big, deep breath right before she throws a putt or a tee shot, and she was dialed in, and that's why we can talk about just how deadly she is. So
the only other person I would think about, Missy Gannon.
Sure.
Who has shown that she has been very, very good inside the circle as well. But, Missy has that very, very good putt as well. So I don't want to leave Missy out of that circle one putting.
Yeah, well, it was that's what I saw out there, Dana. I know that didn't fully answer your question, but I feel like just an event or two ago, Lisa hadn't cashed. I feel like sometime recently, because I remember kind of the shock within my own mind of like, huh? And so we'll see. This might be the confidence builder that she needs right now for this midseason turn as well.
So ultimately, Dana, let's rattle off some of the results for the FPO. Can you do a little rundown for us?
Yeah, so we had Paige Pierce averaging over 1,000 on the weekend, winning by a dozen throws, finishing first. Kat, with her putting woes, still finished in second place and as the only other FPO player under par. Lisa at even par, and then it's a new name, Madison Walker.
Wow.
Madison Walker finishing in fourth place. Not too bad for Madison there. Jessica Weiss finished in fifth, and we had. Then from there on, it was pretty tight out to 13th place, which was the final cashing spot. On the outside looking in was Vanessa Van Dyken, who's had a really good year. She ultimately couldn't get over that first round where she shot a 74, which was 850 rated. Compare that to her final round of 59, 975. She touched the 70s round one, the 60s round two with the 63, and then 59 there during the final round. So
it was really brutal watching her first round. Like, just she was playing poorly, and then every break went against her. It's one of those rounds where you just want to cry mercy at some point, and you can't, because you've got two more rounds to go. But it's nice to see her, push forward and really, try to make something of an event that started out so poorly.
Yeah, and Dana, would it be safe to say, that seeing Vanessa outside of the cash line is arguably one of the biggest surprises of the weekend, which is in fact a compliment to her?
Yeah, I mean, her only other missed cash this year was at the Portland Open, and otherwise she's been all over the leaderboards with a couple wins. She won at Daniel Bowe. I believe she won at the Rumble, and has had a number of other top 10 and even top 5 finishes on the national tour and the Disc Golf Pro Tour. So definitely a little bit of a surprise, but it sounds like she just, some days you're off, and then some days you're off and you get bad breaks, and that's kind of how it goes. But it was nice to see her, pull out of it and shoot 2 respectable rounds following that poor start. So it'll be interesting to see how she bounces back next event, which it looks like she is going to. She's going to the European Open. She signed up for it, and then we'll see her back in the States at Idlewild. So, yeah, big hug and good luck to Vanessa over there in Europe. See if she can continue this this good shooting she's had this year. Her let's see, her rating is it's up to 938, which is an all-time high for her. I believe she's been in the mid 930s, and she's creeping up towards that 940 mark. So good stuff. And if that trend continues, maybe we'll see her in the the Paige, Cat, Sarah type conversation.
Yeah, I can't say it enough. After watching her perform the way she did early in the year at the Las Vegas Challenge and seeing her putt the way that I know she can, she's a lot of fun to watch for that reason. Her putting can also be just incredibly focused and on point. And, there's something to be said. Like you mentioned, she opens with a 74, cleans it up by 15 strokes by the final round, and ultimately has the second hottest round of all the females during that final round. So clearly it was just a matter of getting focused and dialed back in as the weekend rolled on for her. And she, of course, wanted to have a good performance. This is her first year with Discraft. We were in Discraft's backyard, all of those types of things. Whether anyone admits to any added pressure or not, it's not like your contract is on the line at that moment or anything, but you always want to perform well when you're in your sponsor's backyard.
And probably your sponsors are there in person watching
exactly.
And kind of, just taking in the event. As you said, it's not going to be a life or death situation, but it's always nice to play well in front of family.
All right, Dana, might head over to the MPO side.
That was a boring round. That was a boring event. MPO. I mean, right, Dana?
I couldn't tell you. I have not consumed. I told you I didn't watch the live, and I actually haven't watched the Central Coast coverage yet. I am really looking forward to that because it sure on paper and on UDisc looked like a battle between Kevin Jones, KJ USA, and Paul Macbeth. And looking at it on paper, it seems Kevin's start kind of hole one. That was his only blemish on the round, and that was a bogey. What got him off on the wrong foot there that final round, Johnny?
That was only his only blemish on the weekend. He did not take another bogey that particular weekend other than hole one. I'm trying to picture hole one again.
The big downhill.
Yep, it's the big downhill
with OB and such to the left.
Which I don't believe. Yeah, no, he did go OB on that particular shot. He threw OB and was not able to get up and down for the par save on that one. And I mean, it was just a kind of a typical, just a regular OB that a lot of people do when they try to push that hole.
Yeah, and this year they added quite a bit of OB. Some people were saying subtle, some people said it was quite a bit. I mean, it was a lot more than last year, which I think had virtually none. There was a little bit of confusion for some that saw a wall or one of the sponsorship walls along some of the holes where those were really just there as a visual representation, but didn't always necessarily denote an OB line or territory. So there was a little confusion, I know, throughout some of the weekend on that, but there was OB added in a number of places. We saw a few of the holes change position slightly, some tees, some pins, things of that nature. The par for hole number 2 was changed. It was no longer considered a par 5. It was considered a par 4. And we still saw plenty of threes there, of course, as you would expect. So, the changes were subtle, but they were out there. And the one on OB finding that, or I'm sorry, the one on hole 1 finding that OB certainly came into play, as did it on hole 17. In hole 17 and hole 1 somewhat run parallel to one another. They're at least adjacent, you could say. But those ultimately, were the two of the trouble spots for Kevin Jones on the weekend. Yeah,
because you're right. Hole 1's the big downhill. He just didn't turn it over. It hyzered out, which is really funny because Barella threw one as well. And Barella threw it so far they weren't sure if it was OB.
Because it actually went past an OB marked area. It carried all the way deep of it and was beyond it. And it was, so basically the OB was a rectangle of sorts that was out on the left-hand side. And Barella had thrown so far that he got past the rectangle to where he was.
But it ended up being OB.
Really?
Yep. I'm looking at it right now. Anthony Barella, hole one.
Okay.
OB. Yeah, it was determined. And granted, this isn't official, but I would have thought they would have it cleaned up by now if it weren't the case. So the OB did count for Barella.
Oh.
It must have been in some notes somewhere.
Sure.
That's
Exactly.
another subject. But ultimately, yes, Kevin Jones, some would look at, if you just looked at the scorecard, you would think, well, that's what cost him the win. But ultimately, as Ryan Pilcher on the board says, that's what it feels like. I kind of feel like it was more later in the round when he missed the only birdie putt. Him and Zach Melton both got down there, and they both missed birdie putts on the elevated basket where you need to basically throw a forehand or, for Zach, a backhand and turn it up down the path, skip down there, and he missed one at the circle on the elevated basket. It just chained out on the right side. He could have picked one up on Paul there. I feel that was the spot where if you were going to make a move, it was going to be right there.
Yeah, hole number 12, because then they kind of matched each other stroke for stroke from there on out. Now, Dana, people talk about tiger proofing or Macbeth proofing, of course, whatever the case might be. Some people had said, exactly how impressive was his 18 last year? Did they try and make it tougher? So my question to you would be, when you're shooting an 18 under or a 12 under or whatever the case might be last year, which Macbeth did, does tightening the OB or creating it, does tightening that OB matter to him?
Not entirely, no. Because when he's missing his shots, he's not generally missing them by a whole lot. But in regards to the course getting a little bit of updating, I think it was maybe overdue. I know it's changed. It's changed a little bit here and there over the years, but I feel like the design is maybe could be a little bit outdated in some spots. And I'm glad to hear that there was some additions of a few OB lines here and there, because like you mentioned on hole 1 and 17, you used to be able just to fly freely and not have to consider an out of bounds stroke. And now, we're talking Kevin taking one, AB, and then, it coming into play on 17 as well, with Kevin taking one that final round. So it does come into play, but maybe, it's hard to say, for Paul, because he's just, I didn't know if he would, I honestly wasn't sure, and this isn't a knock on him, I wasn't sure if he would get to that level that he was at a few years ago, and I think he's surpassed it. He's just so good, and his misses are, they're not bad misses. His throws are, he's not getting punished with out of bounds strokes very often or at all. So I would say that it's great to, the course was being updated, but, Paul proof it, throw in, I wouldn't be a fan of putting a bunch of punitive out of bounds, especially on a property like that. It's not necessarily needed. I think more so tweaking of the course to make it more of a disc golf pro tour challenge would be beneficial. And it sounds like they made some steps in the right direction. And, we saw, Paul and Kevin, they were at 31 and 30 under par respectively. And then third place was at 23 under par. So I think those numbers are getting in the right direction for the toboggan. And I would definitely like to see it, continue in that direction. Because do you remember what Paul's total under par was last year?
I feel like he obviously shot an 18. I feel like there was maybe a 12 in there somewhere, and then was there a 14?
Macbeth was 40 under last year.
So 18 and 12 would be 30 and a 10. I don't know if those were the exact numbers, but I know I have one of them right.
So 9 strokes more difficult, we will say, this particular
washed up
year. Yeah, and some of that might have to do with the OB, just playing a little safer. I kind of feel like this particular course is getting in the, like you said, is getting to the right spot where most of the scores we're seeing are in that 4 to 8 range of under par. Most of the pros are playing it at that. Where if you're a pro and you go out and you shoot a 6 or 7, you'll walk away thinking, that's not bad. It's just unfortunate when you say that's not bad and you look over at Paul and he's at double digits. And I don't think you can stop that. Like there's just no Paul proofing courses. Not without punishing everybody else. Because he doesn't excel at a particular aspect of his game way more than any other player, like Eagle with his distance or KJ with distance. And Paul throws far. Paul putts well. Paul scrambles ridiculously well. I mean, short of people being able to swat his discs out of the air, there's nothing you can do to stop that guy. And I just don't think that there is. The only thing you could do would be make the courses easier so everybody can get all the birdies. And then hope that Paul falters and another player doesn't. So everybody's shooting 16s. And that's to me, that's not a good answer. So I don't believe that there is a way to Paul proof a course.
Well, Dana, I guess to further my point about making it more difficult, when you try and make some of these courses more difficult, are you not just really punishing the medium players more so? I mean, when KJ or Macbeth are dialed, they're 6 or 8 feet or 10 feet off their line. So even if there's a ton of OB, they're not finding it. And this, of course, can go and be said at USDGC. No matter how tight they make the ropes, when someone is dialed in for the day or for the weekend, the ropes don't even matter. They might as well not even be there, right?
Right. And I don't think that – I think we've learned that the answer is not tighter ropes and more out of bounds. I think the answer is better course design, professional course design for Disc Golf Pro Tour, majors, and tees. I think that the answer is not going and busting out the rope. It's making better holes, better, and yeah, most likely Paul is still, you're still going to see Paul up there, and then whomever is hot that weekend, whether it's a KJ or someone else. But I think the answer is making, making these par fours more difficult. But Paul is, he's so good and so dialed in right now. It doesn't matter if it's a pitch and putt, because he's gonna go out and pitch and putt and beat you at that, or if it's ledgestone, maxed out, where you have OB, where you have these great 2-shot par fours and difficult par threes, or if it's DGLO, where it's got the mix of elevation and otherwise, he's gonna go out and he's gonna dominate, because he's playing so confident right now. He's in great shape, and mentally he's seemingly in a great spot. So there's no real Paul proofing, because he's still going to be up there no matter what kind of course you throw at him.
I think the only way to quote unquote Paul proof a course truly is to add a bunch of OB around a basket that's reachable, because we know if there's one thing Paul does, he's aggressive. He will take the circle 3 every day, as opposed to laying up. It feels like he's almost Paige Pierce like in that manner, where if there's a basket and he can reach it, he's going to go for it almost every time, and just hope that he's off his game a little bit, and then he's hitting those OBs when he's being aggressive, and the rest of the field isn't. I think that's the only way you punish Paul, is by making the basket reachable and putting OB around it. I don't know how else we do it.
I think we should end the conversation, because it's not really, that's not feasible. And Paul, one last thing about Paul that is just so impressive is that he goes and wins on any and every style of course.
Yep.
Which is just incredible. in the okay, you're in the woods this weekend. Doesn't matter. You're on the hills of the toboggan. Does not matter. You're at
Every
Ledgestone.
time.
Got a huge mix of whatnot. Does not matter. He's Paul McBeth, and I was talking about it today with a friend and about his Pittsburgh Worlds performance and how I feel like he's playing at that level that he was at in Pittsburgh, and in the heyday of Paul McBeth, like when he was darn near unbeatable, and it feels like he's right there right now. So it'll be, we've got the European Open coming up, and then obviously Worlds. So he's hungry, he's playing good, and for the rest of the contenders, they better shape up and not miss any putts if they want to give it a shot.
Yeah, it was kind of funny because this weekend, particularly, it felt like every time Kevin was going to pick up a stroke, every time Paul faltered, oh, look, Paul is off in the woods slightly. Here's a good chance for KJ probably to pick up a stroke. Paul would throw some miraculous, ridiculous, deadly accurate shot and put him right where he needs to be. Like, we saw something we rarely see Paul do. I think he threw a thumber or a tomahawk this weekend, and he put it right next to the basket practically. And he threw this massive bomb anhyzer that over trees because he couldn't get wide enough around, and it landed within like 15 feet of the basket. And right when you thought, oh, cool, Kevin's going to pick one up, it's going to really make this a really good battle, Paul just kind of kept him at, I wouldn't say arm's length because it was always about a stroke or so, but just kept him out of it, where you just had this feeling like Paul's not letting go. And that is something that almost no other player in our sport can do like Paul. And it's why he wins, and it's why he won this weekend. And watching Kevin make just little tiny mistakes, hole 17, throwing OB, right there you thought, well, this isn't going anywhere. Because now Paul can easily get up and down for a birdie, and then he's going to birdie 18 because that's what he does. It was almost shocking to see Paul come up short on 17 on his putt and just not convert it. So they both took pars, and had KJ USA not made that one little mistake, we might be talking about something different. I don't think so personally, but I just feel like Paul rarely makes those mistakes, and we see other players make them a little bit more frequently. But it was a lot of fun watching KJ USA and Paul just battle it out back and forth. And
yeah,
wow.
The thing that one last thing on it that I'd like to bring up is it's awesome that Kevin was able to, I know it's been a long time, but last year, if you remember, I think he was leading. Was he leading the event after the first round, and then the 18 under happened, where he just kind of where Paul just demoralized everybody. So it was good to see Kevin, get back on the horse at DGLO and remain up there all weekend. Not the result he wanted, but it's not the last time we're going to see him in contention. A couple other names. Speaking of contention, we saw Zach Melton come back to the Pro Tour. We saw him skip the Ledgestone Insurance Open, and Zach played some really good disc golf at DGLO. Got some smash boxing going on. He went 1054, 1023, 1034. So or something like that. So solid golfing for him. That might have been Calvin Heimberg's numbers. They both tied for fourth. And Zachariah Johnson. He's one of those really electric players. When he's on, and he had himself a really good weekend and a third place finish and cash for over $1,700. So pretty good stuff from him. Johnny McRae, we've kind of seen him in and out. He was just out at Smuggler's Notch And he got over a rough first round. He shot sub 1,000 rated, but then followed it up with a 1064 and a 1042 to bounce him back to a tie for 6th place. And as I alluded to earlier, Nico back out there. The tour's more fun with Nico, I think.
I was going to say the same thing.
He's, while he's, we haven't seen him up at the top a lot. He's one of those people that if it just clicks on the putting green, the rest of his game is so good that he's gonna start winning, or at least competing for these wins. But awesome to see him. He got stronger as the weekend went on. 1014 to 1023 to a 1050. So I think that's maybe 3 weekends in a row for Nico. With I think he was at Ledgestone and the St. Louis Open. So awesome to see. Actually 4 weekends in a row, because he did play Kansas City. But yeah, like you said, Johnny, the tour is more fun with Nico there. And then if you can just get that putt dialed in, and I believe in Nico, I believe he can. I think that the putts are going in around the circle, then that makes him happy. And then a happy Nico is a competitive Nico.
Well, I couple quick notes to complete those thoughts. Zachariah Johnson, that 1770 is the largest payout he's ever received playing disc golf, at least in sanctioned disc golf. Largest payout. His previous largest payout was the 2017 USDGC for about 1350. He finished 12th place there, so very impressive. And I know at one point he was walking toward the bathroom as we were kind of just closing out the day, and awards weren't quite started yet or something along those lines, and all of a sudden somebody's like, no, Zachariah, we need you back here. He's like, and he jokingly turned. He's like, I've never been in this position before. What, you need me where for what? Like, he was, so he was really happy. Clearly a solid performance to finish out the weekend, and to take home your largest paycheck ever for a single weekend of play is not too shabby on top of it. So congrats to him for that. Just to push forward and put it out there the way he did. I'll speak to Johnny briefly. I think he had mentioned on one of the social media sites something about his subpar opening round of that, and he moved up ultimately, I think, like 62 spots from the opening round to where he finished. So clearly he was not feeling well. Jen was not feeling well. She was, I think, feeling even worse. They kind of hung out in the pavilion area where we were getting set up for the broadcast. And both of them just, I don't think they'd be offended if I said they looked like death warmed over. They just were not feeling well. So the way that they battled through it, both of them, is very impressive. And I know they're here in Wisconsin. They're in Manitowoc, Two Rivers area, home of Alyssa Van Lannen and Jim Van Lannen for the Silver Cup this weekend. And they say it's their favorite place in the country to be. So hopefully they'll be able to take some good vibes in and ultimately be able to recover. So it's just incredible performance to fight through the sickness and the feelings that they were having this weekend.
Just good battling from the McRaes.
An ageless wonder.
The other quick update I'll give while roaming around out there, I did talk to Nico briefly. There's something so infectious about his smile when he wants to chit chat before a round, and I said, good to see you. Everybody's worried where you been. And he's like, I'm out living life, man. Like, he clearly has been a little bit more local lately. He says he's working on some stuff with his brother. And I know Nico's always working on something, but he really had this, we'll say, piece about him of, I don't know. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but it sounded as if he was okay with not being in the week-to-week grind that is the tour. It sounded like, at least for the moment, he was okay kind of sidestepping that. Now, I'm not saying we won't see him 12 straight weekends at the 12 biggest events, but momentarily, he was okay with where he was. And again, it was something along the lines of, I'm living life, man.
Nico was what, 31?
Yeah, somewhere in that neighborhood,
32,
maybe.
Something
sure.
like that.
So
No, not quite there.
Not quite there.
no.
I don't think so.
For some reason, I just imagine him as just a few years older than Macbeth.
Maybe you're right. But yeah, I'm
Yeah.
glad to hear that he's in a good place. And yeah, like I said, if he gets the putt rolling, that takes all the pressure off him, and we'll see him up at the top. So
No Ricky this weekend, Dana. I mean, he's in Iceland, and I know he's
Yeah.
kind of started that whole European swing, and he's doing stuff out there. But interesting not to see him at a nice big event here. I mean, or no big deal. Simon's not here. Eagle's not here. So is it just no big deal because it's kind of a goofy timing?
Yeah, and I like it because he's, what he's doing is he's growing, his brand. He's promoting his sponsors and disc golf globally, and those are important things to do when you have the opportunity to go to Europe. I think it's very important to not just go for that 7 to 10 days for the European Open, but to go and do the clinics and go to Iceland and go to these other places that and meet people, do clinics, hang out, play tournaments, or whatever the case may be, and grow disc golf and grow your brand. And for someone like Ricky, that's an important thing to do. And it sure looked like he was having a good time. I'm sure he would have loved to have been sweating it on the toboggan hills, but he'll be used to the time zone changes for when the European Open finally does roll along. And yeah, I'll be looking to. I'm trying to think what kind of finishes we've seen from Ricky and at the European Open in the past. I feel like it's always the Paul Eagle, KJ, OG KJ, that is. We always see those guys up at the top. Trying to think of if Rick has been there in the past and competed for the win, but I'm kind of blanking.
I keep thinking this will maybe be the year I get more in tune with what happens with our majors overseas, and it's totally an internal bias because I haven't been there, I haven't experienced them, that I don't get as excited. I think about the places that most of our bigger events, if I'm not there that year, I've either been there or I'm going sometime soon. And with never having any part of the European Open and being involved in any capacity as a player years ago or now as media, for those reasons, I just don't get as excited as I think the rest of the world does. And maybe that's because I'm completely consumed by 35 other events throughout the year as well that I'm usually involved with. But maybe this will be the year that I don't want to say that I care, but I pay a little bit more attention to what's going on over there. Obviously, everybody loves it. I mean, they're making such a big deal of being there and playing these great courses. I don't know. Maybe I won't consume them. No,
you won't.
Why don't I care, Johnny?
It's not that you don't care. It's that you have so many other things going on that it's hard to actually take that in, other than maybe what people are putting on social media, because you're not going to take the time to probably watch the videos.
Yeah, I don't got time for that.
Yeah, and you've
got time for post-production.
And if you're not consuming some of that, it really feels empty, like you're not a part of it. And you can see all these players make these posts on Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that, but that's not the event. They're taking in overseas and stuff like that. So I think that's why you're not going to change this year. Trust me.
Okay.
But
all right, back to not caring.
I will say we can't forget about Ricky. In regards to Ricky, he did win the San Francisco Open, so that was that was a good Pro Tour win for him. And it's he's been. I'm looking at his numbers right now. He hasn't been out of the top 10. He started out the year slow, but since the glass blown open, he hasn't been out. Oh, I'm sorry, he took 5th. I was gonna say he hasn't been out of the top 3. He did take 5th at Portland. He's just, it's so hard when, as we see, these guys, just the other ones are so good. He just doesn't feel like he's ever competing for first, but he's always up there. So I don't know.
Hey, Dana, I'm going to ask you something, and I'm hoping you could, of course, clarify this, hence me asking you. You're all-knowing. with regards to the European Open, where does UC and Discmania, like where are those? Because of course, we've seen the World Tour and we've seen all these ties, and now I personally do want to know. I'm curious. Do you know where that is, or do you know anything about media coverage, live or Spin TV or post production? Because we know Jomez isn't going. I don't believe Central Coast is going. Do you know any of those things? Are those under even UC's like umbrella these days, or is that something he's on the fringe of? And I ask you because you work at UC.
There'll be a post-produced coverage on the Spin TV channel.
Okay.
They've got a crew coming out. I know that. Aside from, and then live, I haven't heard if there is any. Usually they do some sort of live on Finnish television. I don't know if that's in the plans this year, but there isn't going to be a SmashBoxxTV style live where you can take it on Roku or YouTube or wherever else. But
I was going to say, as far as Discmania's involvement, if you look at the partners for the European Open, you've got Innova, Discmania, Innova Store, Disc Golf Park, City of Nokia, PDGA, Ford, and Nokian Panimo. So clearly UC is still heavily involved in sponsorship of the event, certainly.
Yeah, it's still it's still ran by UC and the crew and his team that has been running the European Open and other large scale events. So
is it a fair question to ask, or to then so this maybe goes to what I was just asking about a few moments ago. Is it fair, other than knowing players are going, does it feel like we have the appropriate level of hype right now, knowing it's a week and a half out, and it doesn't seem like there's a lot of conversation about it being the first major of the year? If this was, I'll say, just an AT or just an NT, and I don't mean to mean it that way, but this is the first major of the year, and it does, and maybe there's a marketing strategy that starts Monday at 6 a.m. next week. I'm not sure. It doesn't feel like the appropriate amount of hype is either out right now or has been pushed. Or am I making that up?
I don't know. What can you explain? Like what you are expecting?
I feel like I'm a target. I am a target on the Facebooks, especially for targeted ads. I see Jomez ads. I see other ads. I feel like by now, a teaser, a few teasers of the event, something that tells us what the media plan is, which is exactly why I had the legitimate question of you. I don't know how or where the consumption's going to be. Is this a Matrix event? Is this a UDisc event?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those are the types of things. I feel like UCN crew and Spin have done so well for so many years, I think, to USDGC and other events that they're part of, that I feel like they put it together a really great press package and just hype machine. And I don't feel like it's there this year. I've literally seen nothing other than knowing a bunch of our players are going. I've seen nothing regarding the European Open. And I feel like I probably have as thick of a Facebook disc golf feed as anyone with what I see compared to, somebody that's on the fringe. I've just seen nothing. Maybe I'm not friends with the right people. I don't know. But I think of, usually you see constant post about the President's Cup, which we've heard a little bit about in terms of the captainship, but then also constant posts about so-and-so is doing in-store signings, and there's usually a promo video by now or a couple of them, those types of things.
Sure. I mean, if you were to look at their, open disc golf Instagram page, I mean, there's been content coming out, for a while now. That the President Cup vote, captain voting was going on, and and then the fan vote happened. That was in May, and maybe, yeah, I think that was all in May. And then, yeah, there's been, if you look at it, there's definitely updates, and as recent as the end of June.
So maybe I mean,
there's stuff on there. Maybe you're not.
Yeah.
Maybe the target is more European disc golfers. I don't know if there's if whatever their marketing plan looks like, but I would expect to see a lot of the things starting to ramp up here as DGLO just ended. So that's basically the last big U.S. event. There's no reason to promote, I'd say, over that, now that I think the eyes are shifting to Europe, especially here in the U.S. in this big market, that we're going to start seeing some more stuff coming out, and more of UC's traditional marketing and promotion that we usually see from him.
I'm with you. I think now, now that DGLO is done, now is when you start to push the media plan. You start releasing, the coverage plan. You start, because what I'm assuming, and maybe assuming is the wrong term, what I'm expecting, I'm for a PDGA major, I'm expecting a minimum of a Facebook Live feed from somebody. I'm expecting at least 2 cards of coverage. One for FPO, one for MPO. Hopefully at least two for MPO and one for FPO, but I think one for each. Your PDGA video summaries and blogs, articles from the PDGA. Obviously, UDisc is something we all come to expect these days. And I think you're going to start seeing, hopefully, you should start seeing some of that spin up. Because right now, if you look on UDisc's page, the only media that they have in there is PDGA News. And I don't know if maybe UDisc doesn't even have that information yet. But I think now is a time when that needs to start to ramp up.
Yeah, apparently I do follow European Open, the event, and June 28th they posted the picture of a disc.
Yeah,
some of the fundraiser discs.
And on June 20th it was another disc.
Well, I mean, you want to promote the
Oh, of course.
That's and maybe we come
2 disc pictures in 3 weeks. Doesn't scream marketing.
No. And I'll say this. Maybe we are, and clearly, you're following on Instagram, but we're getting to be the olds, Terry, where some of these kids might be getting their social media from new places and different places. Did you check TikTok?
I was just gonna say I will check TikTok to make sure that I haven't missed any.
Anyway, I hope we do start seeing things coming up in the next couple days, and getting ramped up for President's Cup. It's cool that UDisc will be covering President's Cup. That's a first, and I know the guys over there had to do some special programming. I talked to Matt a little bit to do the President's Cup. I'm hoping we get some sort of live video, because I'll be super excited. I always love the European events when they're live, because I get to wake up, and they're usually on when I wake up in the morning. At least, some of it, or I get to watch it at work like everybody else. And I'm starting to get that excitement, that level of excitement for the majors that we should have.
UDisc Matt does clarify. Thanks, Matt. He says we requested the media information earlier this week, and we'll get it posted on UDisc as soon as we have it. So.
All right. Thank you, UDisc Matt.
Okay.
All right, Dana. I see that you're redesigning a course in Normal, Illinois. Is that right?
First of all, explain to the world that Normal is the name of a city. There's actually a city in the U.S., and its name is Normal.
I bet you there's a lot of normal cities, like named
Not
Normal.
Illinois.
Not in Illinois.
I am. I just started working on the redesign of Maxwell Park. The Emerald Ash borer came through there over the last, I don't know, within the last 10 years, and kind of decimated the park, and they replanted a bunch of trees. But ultimately, the town of Normal Park District decided that they wanted to do a redesign, and they're opening up some more space. So yeah, I'm happy to be working with them on that. this is the course that I really learned how to play on. So it means a lot to me. I went to college in Normal. Bloomington Normal is usually what you hear. It's Bloomington's a town over. But yeah, Maxwell Park, they've got Bloomington Normal's got a great club, a lot of disc golfers. Maxwell is, if you've driven on 55 through the area, you will see disc golf baskets in a park, and you can actually see the course. So hopefully before the end of the year, we'll be playing this new layout. I'm excited for it for a number of reasons, but yeah, it's been hot out there this last week. I've gone out a number of times, just kind of walking and scoping things out and trying to figure out where things are going to go. And we've got the hurdle of designing around the cross country trail or track. So that's kind of really my only thing that I've got to worry about out there is staying away from that. And it's kind of an open slate, and there's a sneaky amount of elevation, and a lot of trees have been planted out there, and the opportunity to plant more. So I think it's going to be a cool course, and it's one that means a lot to me. So it's awesome to get to help get that one back in tip-top shape.
Very nice, and I'm sure everyone. We have a lot of Midwestern smashies here. What's the projected? What's the timeline on all of that work and installation, redesign, all that stuff?
Well, this is going to be a quick turnaround. We're redoing the course, and they're doing some work in the park. They were awarded the OSLAD grant, the Open Space Land and Development. So in order to follow through on their end, they have to have it done within X amount of time. And it sounds like for this particular project, they're hoping to start construction on the new layout come fall. So maybe, depending on if the weather cooperates and, things fall into place, maybe it's playable, before snow hits. But I don't know, it seems to snow earlier and earlier every year. So I don't say that. But yeah, I'm hopeful sometime in the fall construction starts, and then we're playing it before the snow.
Well, sounds like a plan. I know Brett Comincioli will be happy to be over there checking that out, as I know he's got his parents in that area, right?
Yeah, his parents are down the road, and he's been I don't know if it's in his parents' hometown or the one over, but they're interested in a course over that way too, a beginner course. And one thing I'm excited about this Maxwell project is I've been given the opportunity to design a shorter family beginner course in the same park. So what that does is gives me a little room to stretch out the 18-hole course, and then also have either a 6 to 9 hole beginner course. I'm a pretty big fan of having the two different styles, especially in the same park. And I'm not afraid to design a 100-foot hole, because we have to have courses for kids to play. We have to have courses for families to go out and play, and not big, long, grueling ones. They all don't have to be advanced level courses. And there are actually a number of schools very close that do come over and use the current disc golf course. So I'll be excited to have a more appropriate challenge for them to come play in PE, and then hopefully graduate to the big course. So
I couldn't agree more.
The best thing we can do, I think, is put in more of these beginner level courses in cities. I think it really does, consider it the minor leagues, a feeder to getting these kids excited to play. Just talking from my own self, bringing my son out, there's no way I'm bringing him out to a course like an Idlewild or a DGLO or Toboggan or Ann Arbor, or hardly even Dretska Park, which at times can be maxed out to be just not pleasant unless you really want to challenge yourself. I'd rather bring him out to some of our local courses like a Valley View, Estabrook, the Abendschein, where it's reasonable he's going to get maybe a 2 and probably more 3s than anything else. So I think that's fantastic. That's a phenomenal thing to do.
Yeah, and I've worked with a number of park districts that just don't have the space, or they have a small section that it's not utilized, and I'm going in and putting these short courses in, and they're getting played. They're getting you go stop over there, and it's kids and families and all that. And it's important to for the growth of disc golf, as you said, feeder courses. So if you guys are out there and have a park that doesn't have a whole lot of space, let me know. Maybe we could do a short course, and you can get yourself some practice grounds and get some more people playing in your community.
Yeah, even 3 holes, 4 holes, those are all acceptable as well. We've got there's a park just south of here that just has 3 baskets within about 250 feet of each other, and it's just fun to go out and just throw back and forth and putt, and that's that things as little as that can get kids or people started.
All right, Dynamite.
You're done.
You're done. We got Paige Pierce blowing me up, saying she's ready to talk. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about GBO. We'll also, not GBO, DGLO. And then, speaking of GBO territory, we'll talk a little bit about the Junior Worlds that's getting started tomorrow, as she is already down there. Her and a bunch of other top pros had made the trek from Michigan down to Emporia. So looking forward to catching up with her. She wrote me 45 minutes ago and said in 30 minutes, right? So that means she's probably out there and ready to go sometime very soon. So we appreciate your time and your insight, buddy. And I don't know. Hopefully we'll see you soon somewhere.
Yeah, hopefully sooner than later. I've got one parting shot. Today was ratings update. I want to give a shout out to Rich Klein, a good buddy of mine. Jumped 11 points to 1,001 rated. Mm-hmm. So joining the 1,000 rated club. So great job to Rich Klein. Now let's see how long you can stay up there.
Didn't you get yourself back into the 4-digit club?
I did.
That a boy.
Think
were you
first
that
time
1057 everybody was talking about today?
Yeah, I wanted to be kind of excited, and then I was like, Paul's 1057. But I mean, Paul's he's literally, unarguable. You can't argue that he's one of the best to play. And so, if you want to say he's the best ever, whatever. But he's one of the best to play ever, and he's 1057. But
yeah, I know it's disheartening when he's 50 points better than you, and and 100 better than us.
Yeah, he's really, really he's just so good, and he's so motivated. He seemed so dialed in, and we could talk. I don't know. I don't think we want to talk about Paul anymore.
No, we could fluff Paul's ego all night, and
you guys have done enough of that.
We don't need to do that anymore.
All right, Dynamite. Go to bed on that one, buddy. You can dream. We can all dream. Have a good night, buddy. All right. So, and I was thinking this on the way over here today, and it's not just Paul, it's anyone for that matter. When you're talking about that 1057 or a previous 1049 with Eagle or 1050s, whatever, all the numbers that have been up in that area. And I think I've said this before. Most people in their life will never shoot a 1049 or a 1052 or a 1057 rated round.
Have you ever had one?
I feel like I was in that neighborhood. I want to say, I mean, if we're really thinking about 2008 Worlds, maybe in.
Because I
had one of my better rounds, 2008 Worlds. I mean, better than I know of statistically. It would have been Colebrook in Kalamazoo, Michigan. I know that was, I don't know, 1040, 1050-ish, 1030. Maybe it could have been as low as 1035. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But again, just to think that most people will never have that hot of a round in their life, let alone that being an average. And whether it's, again, Ricky or Eagle or Paul, that's their average. And it's honestly, it's a little disheartening and a little disgusting.
You had a 1052 at 2008 Pro Worlds.
I mean, who's counting? Who remembers that, though? I mean,
I am.
Oh.
And I think
I'm not going to say I moved all the way from like 54th to like tied for 9th, maybe. I may or may not have screenshot that.
I'm
at
sure
the
you
World
did.
Championships.
My personal high is a 1023.
That's cute.
I know, it's I'll take that. But here's what I'm going to say about Paul and his new rating. I would love to have Chuck Kennedy on, because we know that your rating is somewhat based on other players.
Sure.
So as the competition gets better, is that pushing up Paul's rating when he's better than all of them? Like, are we truly going to see a constant ratings increase as we get more players that
ratings inflation
as we see more of these players that, you know, would normally be around 1,000 to a 1010, as they all bump up to 1020, 1025? You know, is that going to push the top up a little more? Are they truly better, or is the rest of the field better and Paul's still above them all, so it pushes his rating up? I don't know the answer. I do know Paul is the best, and Paul looks great right now.
Sure.
And he deserves, whether that's a 1057 or a 1087. I don't care, because ultimately he's really, really good. And I kind of feel like the ratings are really a snapshot of where you stand compared to other players, not necessarily where you stand against yourself 3 or 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah,
but where you are against other players in your time.
And I'm sure Chuck has an algorithm and some math to prove you right or wrong, and whatever the stance is.
Careful, I think we've said it twice now.
I know, you say it that third time. All I know is I'm going to take my favorite compliment, arguably of this year, is when we were at the GBO and Eric McCabe had said that he felt like my 995 with, as he may have said, ratings inflation, he felt was easily well over 1,000. The 995 I peaked at in 2007. He's like, oh yeah, that's easily over 1,000. So that kind of speaks to what you're saying, is then versus now. You know, was the play really that much different? And were the scores, were the players, were the 1,000 rated, and the courses, were those all? How much difference is there? Who knows? I mean, and of course, the real people that matter, not my 995, but the Ken Climo's. Was Climo's peak rounds, were those 1,100 rated if they had all of the same people, all of the same stats and details we have today that we had back when he dominated certain rounds, well before ratings were really a thing? Some of those things we just may never know. I mean,
and as someone is kind of bringing up on the board, yeah, I mean, you were 30 years old in 2008.
Yeah, peaked.
And that's when you peaked. Paul isn't even 30 yet. He hasn't even hit his peak.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, clearly that is the gauge to look at when Terry Miller hit his best round and his peak performance. Paul's not even there yet. It's really scary looking at your players like Barry Schultz, Johnny McRae, like John Baldwin, all these players that are still in the 1,000 rated, or 1,010 or 1,030 in Johnny's case, or whatever, in their mid-40s.
Yeah.
And Paul just turned 29. He could literally have 20 more years or 15 more years of top-tier, top-level golf. You would just never say that about most athletes, that at 29, they got another 10 to 15 years in them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's clearly a testament to our sport, but it's also a testament to where we are in that when we have, dare I say, and to sound offensive, because I would be offending myself here, when we have a field of 60 KJ USAs, then that's when the sport's going to be finally that much different of a look. Right now, we just don't. We have a lot of really talented and gifted individuals that have learned to throw these discs very well, and some natural athletes. But as we gravitate toward, and that's where I look at, you know, some of the people I saw in Finland and beyond, when we gravitate toward people getting into it young and doing nothing but playing and training for it and being disc golf specific at a very early on, just think of how many of our players are like, I used to do all these other things. And then I came across it like one day. They just fell into it. Most of your top level professionals, you don't get Brett Favre, who's like, yeah, I messed around with some bocce ball for a few years and I played darts semi-professionally and I just fell into, playing football. We have disc golfers that have mainly, this generation has still done that. They've fallen into disc golf at some point in their life. In 15 or 20 years, all of our players will have come across the sport and been introduced to it early and have been training throughout.
I don't know.
I do know.
The discussion that I had with somebody, we were talking about athletes in our sport, and someone was saying, well, we don't have a lot of athletes in our sport. And I said, I kind of disagree with that. And again, it comes back to the argument of when people say, oh man, I'd love to see XXX pitcher throw a disc. I'm like, no, it doesn't matter. Like, that person has trained that particular sport specifically since probably high school. Or at minimum college. Maybe in high school they were a two-sport athlete. A two-sport athlete. Most kids, even though now we're getting to the point where a lot of them are becoming specialized at a younger age, like younger baseball players, where they're getting on these select teams, and that's all they're doing. Even though everybody says the best way to make a better athlete is to round your kid out and have them do other sports, but unless the disc technology changes, which it could, I truly feel we're hitting limits, body limits, the distance that people can throw. Look at Barella. Like, I don't know if someone can throw much further than that on a regular, accurately at a golf throw. The only way I think we excel is when you see someone come out and can now accurately throw a 360, where they have trained their body to perfection, where that they can get that extra 50 to 75 to 100 feet with a 360. I think that's the next step, because I think you're going to see the middle tier guys start to move up to be able to throw 500 and 550. But I mean, it's to me, it's slightly insulting, but the argument that we have repeatedly of wait till real athletes get into this sport, or wait till more athletes, I think it's not true, and it's not real. Like,
I think it is. I mean, I subscribe to it.
I don't think
we have some now.
Yeah.
And we have talented and gifted players, clearly. Mm-hmm. And I think when we have an entire field of Kevin Jones types and
sure,
and Paul Macbeth types and Paul Ulibarri types.
But do you think
I think some of the fringe players will be good. They won't be top tier good.
No. I agree with that. I think you're going to see the rest of the field slowly start to catch up to Paul. But my argument is you're not going to start seeing people better than Paul.
No, I'm not suggesting that.
Okay.
I'm suggesting you're going to see dozens more Pauls.
Yes.
I think you're going to see that competition raise in that sense. And clearly he specifically has a mental focus that others don't. Ricky has a mental focus that others don't. There are, in my opinion, I cannot fathom, and we've seen some of our players, and I know we're harping on Paul's good play, but so many of our players, whether it's a Paige or a Kat or a Paul or a Ricky or whomever, have a mental focus that can't be, it's within them that they sharpen. I think of lining up that putt to win the tournament on Sunday that Paul was, knowing that putt from 26 feet wins him the tournament. I think that is an air ball for me all day long. Like, me personally, like,
maybe
I cannot, and of course I'd like to think not, but if I did, I also wouldn't be surprised. And the fact that we see these players, and this is said of all the NBA players and so on and so forth, making a clutch free throw, doing whatever, doing clutch things in clutch moments, there is another level of mental capacity that so many of our top players have to have as well. So I just think we're going to, I think it's all going to get elevated. Now, whether everyone can match the mental capacity, but I think the physical capacities and accomplishments and limits, I think are going to be compressed very soon in the next 10 years. I think we're going to see a lot more of those people. The question is, can they close it? Those types of things. And that to me will be a mental thing, not a physical thing.
Correct.
So we'll see.
Yeah, because to me, I equate a 20-foot putt with a free throw. Like, that to me feels like you walk up to a 20-foot putt and you think, for the most part, you think every basketball player in the NBA should be able to hit a free throw at least 75% of the time, if not 80% of the time. But we still see people miss 20-footers, and we still see, and that is all mental. And there's nobody in our sport, with a free throw, you've got fans behind dancing around, waving. Our sport, it's supposed to be silent and still, and we still see players doink them. And I don't know if that is mental game, if that is just repetition. It feels like you would, bring, I don't even want to pick on anybody. You'd bring any one of our pros out to a basket and say, cool, hit this 20-footer, and they're going to hit it probably 9 out of 10 times, if not 10 out of 10. But sometimes when the pressure's on, doink, or right chain, left chain, or whatever it is. I'm not sure. I think we will see more good athletes in our sport as time goes on, but I don't even know. I'm not going to say 10 years. It's going to be longer. It's going to be way longer than that.
I think in 10 years, we're going to have dozens more Anthony Barella types
I was
that are going to be that age.
I was going to say Adam Hammes, but
that are going to be 20 years old, that are going to have been playing it since they were introduced to it in 6th grade gym class. And I think we're going to see a lot more Anthony Barella types out there. Obviously, at least on the MPO side, I'm trying to think of really young players. Evelina, again, she's overseas. She's on the younger side. Rebecca Cox, she was introduced to it early. I think we're going to continue to see young players, though, get introduced and then grow up playing it and loving it and then wanting it to be a career.
Maybe.
That's happening overseas. The question is, when will that happen here? And a lot of people, of course, are talking about, will our players be following money? Will there be money to be had? And will things get more competitive when there is actual money for someone to say, well, I want to be a pro disc golfer, and their parent smacks them and says, no, you're not traveling around spending.
You're going to be a dentist, Jimmy.
You're not traveling around the country spending $18,000 this year so you can win 12. Like, we're just not supporting that when you're not one of the top, 5 in the world. So anyway, congrats. Happy birthday, Paul. I know we talked about you way too much, but congrats. There is something that's a little special and a little cool about the fact that
he broke his own record on his birthday.
It does get released today, and it is his birthday. And this also falls, I believe, on the 1-year anniversary of when the Sports Center piece was released, the 2-minute piece that referenced his 18 under, and that special Sports Center piece was released too. So very, very obviously a very cool day and time frame for him. And as we know, Paul not on the show tonight. Him and Hannah, I know I talked about it during the broadcast this weekend. Him and Hannah are, I believe even right now, are in Malta. They are taking a little vacation. They are not playing this upcoming weekend as Kevin Jones is. He was going to play in Estonia this weekend, but Hannah and Paul taking a few days of vacation. Ultimately, I know they're going to spend a little time in Helsinki as well, and then obviously be prepping for next weekend's European Open event, which I think is next weekend. I think that's when I saw it's going on.
Are we going to have Paige here?
I have not heard from Paige in the last few minutes. I did message her and tell her we're good to go anytime. Also tonight, he may be our headliner, or we may have him on soon until Paige comes on. We're going to talk with Mo, who's from the Inside Line. He has a new podcast out. He wanted to talk a little bit about that, and it'd be great to catch up with him. He's got a lot of things going on as he's been working with a few of our media crews and hustling around the country doing what he's doing. Ace Run Productions, huge shout out, just was a super chatter a moment ago, and they have a giveaway going on the Raider and Gatekeeper. Follow Ace Run Pro on Instagram. So that's at Ace Run Pro on Instagram. If you want to go out, it sounds like a Raider and a Gatekeeper, maybe a dozen of each, maybe. I don't know. You'll have to go see what their Instagram is got going on. Oh, this is an exclusive. Let me follow that up, Johnny. They say we still haven't announced it yet. You guys got the news first. So one lucky
Smashbox
winner will
exclusive.
get both as a Smashbox exclusive announced here. They will both get 24 Raiders and Gatekeepers. Is that what I heard?
No, I don't think that's what you heard. I think you're making
All
that up now.
right, maybe. Mo, if you're available, I was going to say, until we hear from Paige, you just know that you're going to get the hook if Paige does call in, as Paige and the Dynamic Disc crew, I know, are running around getting things ready for tomorrow's opening rounds. But if Mo is available and ready, we could take him right now. We told him we'd see him in the after show, but it sounds like now's as good a time as any.
Why not?
To have him. And let me do a fancy click or two and see if he's good.
He's online. I can call him.
All right, let's ring him up. He's probably not ready, but we'll ring him up anyway.
Hey, if you're on Skype, you better be ready for us to call. And that goes for any of our pros. If I see you on Skype, I might just dial you up.
Call me maybe. All right, we're going to see if we can get Mo here on the line and get an update for what he's got going on. I saw him out hustling around up and down the hills this weekend, running some catch
Mo,
cam
go ahead and
action.
hit your video so we get you some video back from you. Mo's having a Skype issue here.
Technical difficulties on his end.
Yeah, yeah, that would work as well. I can hang up and give us a call back.
All right. So, also in the news, briefly, and it can be talked about briefly, Discraft's own Ben Askren in MMA news this weekend.
Sorry, you're done. That's all the time you get.
Ben, who had come into it with an undefeated record,
Ouch.
and ultimately knocked out in a UFC record. I think they're calling it as 5 seconds. I think someone could argue.
If 5 seconds is when they called it, I think he was knocked out in about 2.
Yeah. So that went on this weekend. There sounds like, I'm getting a call directly. I'm not sure if you're hearing that, Johnny. I don't know if he's trying to call me personally.
I'm going to give him a call back.
But it sounds as if he was released. He was on a popular MMA show this weekend, and it from what everyone has posted on Facebook in the last 6 to 8 hours, they've said his review and his discussion talking about how he lost and the lessons he learned. Everyone is saying he's handling the loss really well, and it's been a real growing experience, and he gave a really good interview after losing. So I'm interested to hear that.
Yeah, I'll listen to the interview. I kind of, again, we'll briefly touch on this when we'll have Mo on. Knowing Ben's social media presence and the way he kind of talks crap, he had to know at some point he's going to get the crap kicked out of him from someone somewhere.
Sure.
So I would hope that he's kind of taken this in stride, and maybe I can't say, and sounds silly, maybe it's better that it was this way because it can kind of play into his personality a little bit. And all you can do is just kind of be like, yeah, that sucked. Clearly, like what his Twitter thing said.
Yeah.
And he'll, I'm sure he'll be back for more.
Yeah, well, Joe PG, a regular, says it was a great interview and watch it for sure. From an interviewing perspective, that's why I want to consume it. And I know Ben a little bit, but just from a sheer interview, from like an actual strategic interview style, I'm interested to see what was asked of him and then how he replied, because so many people are really talking up this interview and how it went. So that's why it has piqued my interest more than most other MMA, which I really don't follow.
All right.
Now, MMA superstar in his own. I don't know who he's going to battle.
He's more of an NBA superstar. We know Mo follows the NBA.
All right. Well, let's welcome him to the show from the inside line. Not Terry Roethlisberger. We'll get that adjusted if you're watching online. Mo, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
We are doing pretty darn well. Dare I ask, where are you now? I know this last weekend I saw you hustling around the hills at the toboggan, but where are you now?
Right now I'm in my apartment in New York City.
Ah, okay. So talk
CCDG must be doing well if you can afford an apartment in New York City.
Yeah, how many floors up in Manhattan are you?
my wife is doing really well.
Well, then you married right.
Okay. So I've seen you at a bunch of events this year. You literally and figuratively have worn a number of hats. What's kind of been your kind of your strategy this year with coverage? What have you been up to?
I've kind of been doing as many Central Coast events as I can do, as many as like makes sense for me to do. I was in Alaska for a couple weeks on vacation, which is why I missed the last couple events. But I got back, and then the very next day I went to Vermont to cover Masters Worlds. So yeah, I've just been doing like as many events as I can do, and then when I come home during the week, I work on the podcast. And I'm writing the podcast on the flights to the event, and then I come home and like produce it. So it's been like a very interesting, fun year. I've never done anything quite like this, so it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, the disc golf media full-time life is it's relentless. It's grueling. Are those a couple of right adjectives?
Yeah, totally. It's it's like so much more work than ESPN, but you get paid way less. It's really
I love it. It's great. Yeah,
It's
tell me
it's-
how does that
It's
work?
emotionally fulfilling.
Shut up. No. Yeah, that
Actually, if you follow me on Twitter, I tweeted the other day when I was working on something, I forget exactly what, but I was just like really frustrated, and I was like, this is disc golf. This is supposed to be great. And I just like very angrily tweeted, doing what you love professionally is for suckers, just because in that moment of anger. But yeah, overall it's like amazing. Like I get to travel, see all these cool courses that I've wanted to see. I have like all this creative control with this podcast that I love producing, and working on these Central Coast trips. They're like really fun. Like it's like so like I'm never bored. It goes by really fast. Like there are days at ESPN that kind of like dragged, and never drags here. So it's definitely like a really cool gig. I'm really happy that I'm doing it.
Awesome. Well, I know when you're writing that rent check in New York, you don't get to write emotionally fulfilled in the pay to the order of or the amount, but it is very cool that you're able to get out there and experience it. And I think it's great that someone that's as trained and experienced as yourself, who worked at a place such as ESPN, wow, like just what a transition. I mean, just on the most basic levels. I mean, you're talking about, the sports outlet to now our little niche sport.
Yeah, it's been pretty cool. I mean, it's interesting switching to a medium where everyone knows each other. Like I didn't know like the baseball guys at ESPN. I didn't know like the NFL guys at ESPN. I just knew my NBA family kind of. And disc golf, we all know everybody. We all know everybody who's producing anything because there's so few of us. So I think that's definitely interesting. Like it does feel like a lot more familiar. Like I don't know. It's cool going to the events and you get to. It's like a reunion. You get to see everyone again. Like it's definitely cool. So.
Well, and I'm sure it's going to be interesting for you, like you said, seeing these courses, coming to these places, bucket list items or otherwise. Then you're already thinking ahead to, well, where else do you need to get to go, and where do you want to return? Just keeping those items on your list, like, oh, that was awesome, or that place didn't live up to its hype, or was there something great about the tournament, but the course was meh, or vice versa.
Yeah, honestly, like there hasn't been a course this year that I have come back home from and been like, that course kind of sucked. Like every course has been like as cool as kind of advertised. The only one, and I don't mean to put
put them out in blast.
I don't mean to put this course. I think it's just like the way I think about disc golf. This course I didn't jive with, but the Goat Hill challenge.
Okay.
Like, love the Grizzlies. Don't want to like, yeah, but I remember walking around that course and being like, I would never play this. This doesn't seem fun for me personally.
Mm-hmm.
This, like, I don't know, design wise, it just seemed kind of like boring. Like, I get it. It's supposed to be a distance showcase. Like, I like it's supposed to be super cool because you get to watch Seppo Payo and Kevin Jones and Thomas Gilbert throw 600 feet over and over again. But like, I don't know, it just didn't like do it for me on like an emotional level. Like I didn't feel like connected. That was the only time filming where I felt like, God, we're only on hole 3. Like that's the only time where I was kind of bored in the middle of the round. Usually I'm pretty like, oh man, they're on this hole. I can't wait to see how they attack it. Like DGLO this past weekend was so cool. Like DGLO flew by.
Mm-hmm.
Like we would get to hole 16 and I would always be surprised that we were there. But yeah, Goat Hill is the only one that I wasn't like super stoked on. Kit Carson was fun too, but also just kind of like, I mean, Kit Carson was great, but it's also just kind of like a course in a park. Like it wasn't like, and I'd been there before, like just for visiting. But like Milo, my God, like Milo's the only course where I just released the podcast on it. Milo's the only course that I've been to that like far exceeded like anything I could have even dreamed of. Like I was so shocked when I went there. Like because you expect it to be beautiful, you expect it to be like incredible, and then you go there and it's more incredible than that. Like it just like I remember when I turned the corner on hole 2 west, right, the stump hole with the it's like in that secluded green, and I literally like I lost my breath. Like I was literally like speechless. Like, oh my God, I can't believe this green exists in real life. And it was so cool. So yeah, I mean, it's just yeah. Sorry.
Have you been to Maple Hill yet?
Yeah, I mean, I lived in Connecticut for a while, so I lived.
Yeah.
I lived like an hour from there, so I went there all the time.
Because that's how I felt when I went to Maple Hill. Like you'd seen it so many times on video, but getting to go there, you're like, wow, like this place, just every hole and every shot is meaningful and impressive, and they don't just have one iconic hole. Like you walk up to some course, you're like, this is the hole. At Maple Hill, there's like 7 of them where you picture it every time. You know, hole 1, hole 2, hole 3, hole 14, hole 15, like holes 18. Like there's so many of them. And when I got to Milo, I liked the course, but I wasn't blown away. I thought, wow, there's some really nice holes out here. But for me, I was kind of like, all right, I could see how this could be really cool, a really fun atmosphere with people. And it's awesome they have these 2 courses here. But I wasn't blown away like that, like I was at Maple Hill.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think Maple is better from a design perspective. I definitely agree that like Milo as like a disc golf course, maybe like, I mean, there's certain holes out there that like just kind of don't make sense or are a little bit fluky. But like I'm as like a nature geek and as like I went to Alaska for vacation for Pete's sake. Like, you know what I mean? Like I love being out in like the middle of nowhere. Like that course really did that for me. It really just scratched that itch. But Maple is like, I think Maple is the best course in terms of design that I've been to, just in terms of like every hole being like well thought out and like just Steve constantly pushing the boundaries on like we should tweak this hole here, tweak that hole there. I think it's what I'm going to do when I do the Maple Hill podcast, is trying to explore that idea of how like often that course changes. It never stops changing. Like you'd think a course that great would eventually they'd be like, yeah, this is our layout, we're good here. But like Steve has never kind of finished designing that course, which I think is cool.
Well, what I find interesting is so you largely represent Central Coast, and then you go into Central Coast's backyard, and you don't love Kit Carson, and you don't love Goat Hill. I feel like someone else this weekend was in someone else's backyard, and the remarks. Okay, maybe that's a little off base, but anyway, when you release this last podcast, give everyone a little bit of the premise to it. You know, after you speak, we all speak so highly ultimately of Milo, but what's the premise of the podcast?
the podcast in general, or
yeah,
just this
no,
last
no,
one?
the most
The
recent
Milo
one.
one.
Yep.
Yeah. So the Milo one, I focused on like how do courses and tournaments evolve when they're already like crown jewel status? Like, how do you change something when like you're already kind of like beloved? You know what I mean? Like it's like when you make a small change at your local course, it affects like 50 people. But when you make a small change at the best course in the country, that is one of the like the most important one of the most important tournaments we have all year, like that gets felt. There's reverberations of that throughout the disc golf community. So just talking to like Haggerty and Middle and trying to figure out like how receptive are they to changing things. And I was like, honestly, I was ready for them to not be very receptive. I was ready for Middle and Haggerty to be like, yeah, we're not changing anything. We think this is fine. Like, we think the 2 rounds in one day is fine. We think not having live coverage is fine. And we're ready for, we're never going to change anything. But then I was I was really pleasantly surprised. It kind of ruined me a little bit because I was ready to write this episode and then they kind of gave me the interviews and it wasn't what I was expecting. But Middle was like, yeah, no, we definitely are thinking about changing all these things. Like, we know that there are issues and we're trying to change them. And I was like, oh, that's like super thoughtful of you. That's like really interesting that you have the foresight to be able to do that. So that's kind of the setup. Is Milo's great. There's still some things wrong with it, and then me interviewing the 2 TDs and them talking about how they know about these small issues and they're thinking about changing them. They know how they're it's in their thoughts on how to adjust to them. So, well, yeah.
I feel like that goes hand in hand with they are just generically pressed with a very unique situation or unique problem in that they're being I'll say, I don't want to say scrutinized. They're under the microscope that much more because more people want in. More people want to be part of it. And you know, those famous words of, you know what you should do. Well, people are saying, you know, you should split the weekends. You should go to this kind of format. More people want to be involved. I mean, they have such a demand for what they're doing, and for them to then take, you know, kind of find that balance of how do you appease more people and how do you accommodate more people, if that's even a goal, or are you trying to, you know, keep it a little bit more exclusive? And that goes with the course design, that goes with format, that goes for a lot of different things that to be said there. Is that kind of off the mark, or do you know what I mean?
No, that's like exactly what you said. Like all the people say, oh, well, you should do this. Like, I hate it when people say, well, you should do this without like offering, like, or without committing to a way to actually do the thing. Yeah. Right? Because it's so easy to complain. It's so easy to say like, these are things that are wrong. And it's a lot harder to point out like viable solutions and like really get in deep in the like the weeds and the details of like why these things haven't been done. Like Jeff and the Jeffs are smart. Like anything that you're about to suggest, they've probably thought of it. Mm-hmm. And there's like, when I was talking to him about it, like, yeah, I asked Jeff Haggerty, like, why don't you split the weekends? And he said like, well, think about it this way. All my volunteers, I have like a ton of volunteers, and they all have to already take off Thursday to prep for the tournament, and most of them take off Monday. So you're telling me I need to ask all these people to take off work? They're not getting paid for this. Mm-hmm. Like, do you want me to tell them to volunteer to take off work 2 weeks in a row so that they can work, right? Mm-hmm. Like they're taking off work to work this tournament. Like, it just doesn't like make sense. It's not like anybody is getting like paid to run these tournaments. You know, it'd be a different story if like
they're getting players packs. I saw that.
Yeah, disc golf rich, baby.
Hashtag disc golf rich. Yeah, me and Dane, I'd like to joke about that on Twitter. But yeah, I mean, it'd be another thing entirely if Middle and Haggerty didn't have jobs and this was like, and running the Beaver Stapling was their job, right? Like then I'd be like, yeah, maybe you should think about splitting up these 2 weekends. But like, it's not. They do things on the side. Like, that's one of the things that I'm kind of worried about with disc golf is like the entire disc golf industry is like being supported by love of disc golf, which is like
we've built the sport on the backs of volunteers.
Yeah, that's tough. Like, how are you? Yeah, you're not going to grow if it's going to be hard to grow past a certain point if you're building your infrastructure on love. You know what I mean? Like,
well, and that just immediately, and fair or not, I'll say, as someone who 15 or 18 years ago left corporate, you know, I was of course much younger, in my early 20s, but left corporate America to then pursue the idea of making disc golf in any fashion a full-time career. There was even way back then plenty of animosity, you know, and plenty of bitterness. I'd put in lots of volunteer hours and I feel like done a lot of things in the previous 6 or 8 years. But then when I said I wanted to make it a full-time career, and this was well before media was even involved at all, there's a lot of frustration from that. How dare you make money is is very much, and today is largely a phrase that gets thrown around. I feel like
I think it's
getting
going away.
eased out. Yeah, it is starting to ease out a little bit. But if you're a little bit more old school, you know, you might be riding that bitter train that's, hey, you know, I've always volunteered. I've never made a dime off disc golf, you know, and I volunteer 5,000 hours a year or whatever that number is. I still applaud all of those people, and clearly we still need all of that. But we have to realize that, like you're saying, we're only going to grow when people can dedicate full-time hours and full-time efforts to growing our sport in whatever that is, whether that's course design or sales or media or whatever. We'll grow out of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. Like, I'm running an 8 year this year, and I like fully expect to pay money to run this 8 year. Like, I just like, I've already conceded that idea. So, and I'm sure you, Terry, who's run like a million tournaments, like there's no way you're making like money on these. So, you know, it's I don't know. I mean, it is cool also because it does kind of lend to that community feel of us being part of this very small, tiny group. But like, I don't know if that's necessarily worth the growth of the sport in the future. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it's a tough nut to crack for sure.
Well, and just to sidetrack briefly, because I think it was talked about somewhere else with some other event relatively recently. Someone had said, if there's a late fee to get into a tournament, where does that money go? You know, should it be going into the purse if you know, registration ends on Wednesday, but someone signs up Thursday or Friday for a weekend tournament? Where's that extra $10 per player go if there's late registrations? And I always earmark that money to go toward paying for volunteers, either, you know, their player pack or their lunch or something of that nature, or buy them dinner afterwards. And because people always argue, well, that should go right into the purse. I don't know, said who, you know, that was, you know, some, you know, it's one idea, of course, and I'm fine with it if you want to do that. But someone acted as if they demanded it. I always thought, no, I'm gonna buy my volunteers dinner. Like, do you want to argue with that? Do you want to go talk to the volunteers and have that argument with them? It's just so funny how worked up people get over that $10 or whatever that late fee was. It's
right. Yeah, I mean, money has to go somewhere and has to come from somewhere, right? So like, you either have this tournament like the way you want it, with like things being nice, or you can have a bigger purse. Like, you can't have both of those things, you know? So
real quick, tell us about this A tier. I know I've heard you mention it, and I know that's not why we're having you here, but what's going on with this A tier?
Yeah, I'm actually really excited about it. It's called the Firefly Hollow Open. It's our first year being an A tier. The tournament is running October 18th to October 20th. It's one round a day with tee times at Rockwell Park in Bristol, Connecticut. And yeah, we were a B tier the last 2 years, and I applied to be an A tier this year, like literally expecting to just get like a like nice for trying from the PDGA. Because like the course is 3 years old and the tournament is 2 years old, so like I was like not expecting anything. And then Andrew Fish actually tweeted me, like sent me a message on Twitter, like, hey, like what's going on with this Firefly Hollow A tier? And I was out playing at the time, and I was like, what do you mean Firefly Hollow's an A tier? And I was freaking out. I looked at the PDGA website and I saw that we were on the list, and that just like blew my mind that they were like ready to approve us after 2 years, because it even says when you're applying, like, your tournament should probably be going on for like 5 years before it's going to be accepted. And I was like, all right, fine. But yeah, we're going to be an A tier, and I'm super stoked. Prodigy just signed on as a major sponsor.
I'm assuming you're going to have live coverage from us. And
live coverage by SmashBoxx, of course.
Fly you guys out to Connecticut.
That's right. First class.
No.
So it's the only way we do it.
Whatever is better than first class, up to you guys. Are fine.
Sweet. Perfect.
But yeah, that was a joke, by the way. Don't.
I've already booked it. Sorry.
Yeah, it's on the podcast. I mean, that's set in stone.
Yeah, but I'm just stoked. Like, I think it'll be really cool for our little community. Bristol has another course, Page Park, which is the most popular course in Connecticut, and we have a huge community. And Rockwell is kind of the big brother course of Page. So Page, which is a really popular course, but it's pretty easy, pretty beginner friendly. And then we designed Rockwell kind of knowing that course was there, that we could kind of push the limits and make it a championship level course. And it's been really well received by a lot of top players have come through when they were visiting ESPN. They came and played it. Like Ricky played it, Milo played it. So Schustrick and Joey Lutz and Dickerson came and played it at our course opening. So it's gotten some a lot of really cool people have played it and have given it pretty good reviews. And yeah, we're just stoked to be running this tournament. The registration actually opens next week on the 20th. So if you're interested and live in New England, there's a ton of added cash. The city of Bristol is helping us out a lot. Firefly threw in a bunch of money. The brewery that's the title sponsor. And yeah, it's my first year running an A tier, so I'm super nervous that I'm people care about this tournament a lot, and I want to do a good job by them. So I think about the tournament probably more than I should, given that it's so far away. I want to be doing more things with it, but there's it's not till October. I just can't reasonably do these things until yeah. So Terry,
Awesome.
You've run A tiers. Give me some advice. What should I be what are the things that I'm not thinking about that I should be thinking about?
I mean, I think with you touring and now seeing these courses and these events, just clearly course prep is something that everybody expects. And I think eliminating all of the even remotely possible gray zones or questionable calls. You really have to think about the most crazy, outlandish throw or situation, and then try to get that onto a scorecard or into a caddy book to address it, because it always feels like something happens, a railroad tie is somehow removed. And I mean, again, not to pick on anyone, but those are the crazy situations where it's you try to, whether you have natural OB or artificial or whatever, just all of those types of situations. I was at an event not that long ago, I don't remember where it was, but the Mando line, there was a tree that denoted the Mando, and there was no line at it. So it's and it was a really big tree. So I remember saying to them, you need a line so that if you've officially passed the tree in the Mando line or not, because the tree kind of marked the Mando, but there was no line there. I don't know, was there a line at Great Lakes this weekend for that Mando on 8, 7? I didn't even look at that one, but you need to know if you've officially passed that tree. Just things like that, I feel are, because we all know someone goes, there's a discrepancy in the group, it creates a controversy, and then that's all that's talked about. It's not your amazing payout with your great staff and all these other things. It's, did you hear how so-and-so got screwed by the Mando, the bad Mando on 7 first round? That ruined their tournament.
Well, that's interesting because I have a question for you then, because we have a kind of a rushing river on one of our holes on hole 18 at Rockwell. And the river is moving. It's it's a serious river. If you lose a disc in it, the disc will go down the river.
Yep.
And last year I painted a line, and I got some criticism about the line because they said the line was too far from the water, and they were well, so I was dry. I was clearly dry.
Cool story.
But because of your line, I was out. And this year I was thinking well, do I just make the water line? Do I just make the water don't even mark it, make the water? Or
no,
would you
because
rather...
is the water going to be in a different place or due to either flooding and or drought, we'll use two extremes, is it going to be different on Friday than it is on Sunday? Could one be dry one day and one be wet the next? I like a line or string or whatever it is, clearly noted, clearly defined all weekend long. And to someone that says, oh, well, I was dry and I was still OB, yeah, cool story. Guess what? You're dry on hole 2 at the USDGC and you can still be OB because you're in a parking lot. Like, you could be being, I get it, there's water there, but I don't care. Paint a line that's fair, that everyone can see and knows about, and then if they're on the wrong side of it, they were too close to the damn OB in the first place.
Well, and the other question is, I'm assuming if it's an A tier, are you going to be offering most divisions?
All of them except for like the lowest rec level. I'm not gonna be no rec. I'm
no
not gonna
rec.
be rec.
I mean, any junior things like that, because you have to think if it really is a rushing river, you have to think safety concerns as well. You don't.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily want a 13-year-old kid to be right next to a rushing river where they could slip and fall in or anything like that. Like, I know it's an extreme concept, but why put yourself in that sort of peril? Give yourself 4 or 5 feet from there. If the disc goes in, I mean, you're not trying to plant up next to a possible death hazard.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I totally agree. I mean, that's why I gave people 2 meters off the river. Like I didn't. I made TD exception to do 2 meters off the river last year. And yeah, so that's good that we had this conversation because now you guys convinced me that I should just like. No, I'm so damn sensitive.
Well, you want to please everybody, and then it's just really frustrating when that one a-hole shows up and is like, oh, but why'd you do it this way? And it's like, too bad.
Yep. Having to explain every single decision gets old.
And a quick tip I love to give, and I do this, and I will say it to all players. Wherever you have hopefully one final or official listing of rules or details, always just reference that and send them to that. And the point is, somebody walks up to me the morning of a tournament and they say, hey, is to the right of, the tree on 13, is that OB or, whatever. They rattle something off. You're thinking, yeah, because to the right of that's OB. You say yeah or whatever you say to them, when really in your head, because you're doing a million things, you're thinking hole 14 where it's the exact opposite. And then next thing you know, you've just told someone something that conflicts what's written, and then they're going to use that in the group. People all the time when they ask me questions, and it wasn't to be a jerk, and I know other TDs have adopted this, I just say check your caddy guide or whatever your reference point is. Just have them check that, because you or your staff never want to conflict your own information that you've put somewhere else. I feel like that happens all too often. I mean, we've seen it on big events. Someone's like, well, they said at such and such this. I think that's what I heard them say, but the caddy guide says this. It's like, do your best to have one official point of reference and then always direct people to just that.
That makes smart. Yeah, for sure.
You're going to get caught up. You're going to a question's going to come in from left field. Well, is players meeting at afternoon players meeting at 12:15 or 12:30? And you were thinking, well, it was going to be 12:30, but then I moved it up, and next thing you know, you tell them the wrong time. They're caught up at the Dairy Queen too long, and they get back and they're like, but you told me 12:30. It's like, no, I told you to check the board, and the board was right all along. That kind of stuff.
I actually wasn't gonna do a players meeting. I was gonna do like the digital players meeting.
Sure.
Copy
what I did.
Send an email, have it on YouTube.
That's great. I'm a big fan of that. I've done that as well, and I think that's another good way to do it. Maybe you get it out 2 days or 3 days or a week in advance, and they can consume it as many times as they wish or don't. I mean, most people hate players meetings and or don't show up and or don't pay attention when they do show up, or they're real dicks and they show up. They sit in the back and they just talk the whole time, so everyone else around them can't hear what's really being said.
Or they sit and putt while you're trying to do it.
Or they sit and putt like our buddy Steve Held's PDJ 7257. Is one example.
Sounds like you have some personal experience.
I'm this close to muting him, Mo. I really am. Like, you're getting him wound up.
Don't get me started on running tournaments. There's
some of the things I've noticed that I think are really useful. Close registration early. regardless of whether you're full or not. Pick a date like a couple days beforehand and just say, we're sorry, we're closed, whether it's Wednesday or whatever. And that gives you 2 to 3 days of just knowing exactly what you're dealing with. You can get payouts taken care of ahead of time. You're not thinking like, oh, I got 3 registrations this morning. Let's take care of that. You can have all the cards printed up. You can have all that stuff taken care of well ahead of time. So it makes your day of that much easier. I've seen Terry do that. I've helped out in the past, and it just seems like that is the way to really lock down what you're doing.
And then on the flip side, you'll tick off Matty O, who showed up to Beaver State. They told him, registration ended, I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday. And Matty O is like, I'm here. There's a spot available. Can I play? And they stuck to their guns, and they said, no, we closed registration. And I'm just using this as a very specific example because that's what happened this year. And Matty O was frustrated, but yet registration was technically closed. And so, you may or may not deal with that PR, but you taking registrations up until 9 minutes before tee off is also terrible. So, you're never going to please everybody, as we all know. It's be as firm and concise, have a little empathy where you can, but I think being firm and concise and just sticking to it is what's crucial.
That's definitely the hard part, is like sticking to it when someone's looking at you all teary-eyed, but I'm here, I'm ready to play.
I got money. Here's my money. Yeah.
I'll pay a late fee extra.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm definitely going to close registration on the Wednesday, and I think I have I had 5 spots set aside for touring pros, like people who they legitimately can't set their schedule because they just they don't know if they're going to be if you win USDGC, you're not playing my tournament anymore. You're going to just be like, well, I probably don't need to play that A tier anymore. So it also may or may not be the same weekend as the Pro Tour finale. Right. So if players, I want to leave room for players who maybe don't make it to the second day of the Pro Tour finale, able to come up to Connecticut if they want to make that trip. Although I'm not sure that's going to be in Jacksonville anymore, the Pro Tour finale. So, but that's a totally different content.
Who knows?
There's I think some open-ended discussions yet.
Going back a little bit about your touring this year, you're doing a lot of video coverage. We see you. You're a lot of times you're shoulder to shoulder with our live guy, depending on who our catch cam is.
I go out of my way to be in their way. I don't know if you guys know.
You're killing that.
You're killing that, Mo. No.
Everybody loves seeing the back of your head.
Well, it was funny because there was a photographer this particular weekend, and she had posted up just to the left of our cameraman, and he was panning and twice right into just the side of this woman's head. It wasn't Alyssa, it was somebody else. And I said, here, I'm going to go to camera 1, just step around her, this, so you can pan to where we need to go. But what is are you doing a lot of the nightly edits as well? Are you involved heavily in the shot by shot? I know you did commentary for the Masters.
I did. That was really fun. I like doing commentary. I do. So for example, at DGLO, I banged out the AB edits. So AB edit, no one knows what that means. I did so we have 2 cameras, right? We have the A camera, which is the one behind the T-pad, and we have the B camera, which is the catch cam, which is what I was doing this past weekend. And we have 2 different blocks of footage that need to get stitched together. So I do that. And then while I was doing that, Peter Maras, our resident editor expert, he was doing the mastering. So basically getting all the scorecards ready, putting all the graphics together, so that I give him the cameras cut together, and he just puts it into this template, and that's how we're able to turn them around so fast. Same thing happened at Masters Cup or at Masters Worlds, except there's the added. We have an added camera. We have a third camera, the slow-mo cam. So while at that tournament, Corey was doing the mastering, I was doing the AB edits, and then Brian Geis, he wants to live in the shadows, he says, but Brian Geis, who's the slow-mo cam for us, he edits the slow-mo and sends it to Corey, and then we have a different template for when we have slow-mo available. So yeah, it's a really like honestly, it's really cool, like and very seamless how it all gets turned around. And we could have same day coverage if we could do commentary at like 1 a.m. Like we could be putting, yeah, we could definitely be putting out, or not even that late. Like we were finished at DGLO, we were finished like around 10 or 11 usually, and like if we just could, if me and Peter could just sit down and do that commentary right then, we could have had it out at like midnight that same day. So I think that is interesting that like we're getting so fast at this. It's just technology is so good now. It's really incredible. But yeah, so I do a lot of the A/B edits. I'm not like very proficient at After Effects yet. That's kind of what my biggest room for growth, I would say. I still have to like get like very good at that before I can. Like I want to be able to do what Peter and Corey can do, which is like kind of work through the template and like understand how everything's linked together. Because I can do that.
It's not too tough.
Yeah, I can do it. It just takes me like a little bit longer, and I want to be fast at it. Like I want to be able to like look at it immediately, know what's wrong, and be able to fix it. And that's definitely like still somewhere I need to grow. So, but yeah, I don't know. The A/B edits are fun because that reminds me a lot of ESPN, like just cutting like sports highlights. It feels like I'm back in the wheelhouse there. So.
Yeah, and kind of interesting to see. I thought there was a really firm stance that we weren't going to see Corey doing kind of that kind of stuff again this year, and it looked like that's the role or the need that was or the gap that needed to be filled, at least at the U.S. Masters. Was he working cameras as well?
Yeah, he was doing A-cam and doing mastering. So yeah, I guess I mean he took the week off ahead doing his own videos to help us out, which is Corey's like super good at that stuff. So it really helped to have him around. And yeah, like Brian, I think is like the best slow-mo person in the game. Like he's so good. Like he's like an artist. Like we're all like me and Ian always joke like we're hacks, you know. And but Brian's like an artist, so it's really cool watching him kind of stalk around the tee pads. If you ever go to an event, definitely like watch him and watch like how he like is just looking for like the coolest shot. I always think it's like really fun to watch him kind of walk around the tee pads and stuff.
Yeah, he's always on the prowl.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and we're not even going to take what you're saying about Brian as you throwing full shade over at Jonathan over at Jomez Pro. We won't say we won't stretch that into that. You saying that he's terrible and Brian is way better. I would not stretch it into that.
No, you should, because that's actually exactly what I'm trying to say. That's what I was going for.
Okay,
that's exactly what we were going for.
All right, so give us the final spiel on not only this particular. Well, you told us about this podcast. What
can we expect to see?
Yeah, it's out, right? You just dropped it.
Yeah, the Milo episode came out today. We have 8 episodes. We have 8 episodes now, which is like enough where I can be like, if you haven't listened to the podcast before, definitely jump in and just like you have 160 minutes now of content. Go back and listen to. I just did an interview with UC Maresma today, actually, which I'm really excited about because UC, my God, he was so interesting. Like I could have I honestly had to like cut myself off and be like, you can't take any more of this guy's time. Like he has things to do. And I talked to Elaine King when I was at Masters Worlds, and she was also a joy to talk to. So next week I'm going to try and have an Elaine King episode out where it's just me talking to her for like 20 minutes. Disc safety and designing with safety in mind. She's on the board of directors, and that's something that she was really passionate about. And then the week after that, I'll have a European Open episode where I'll be focusing on the Nokia course. And then it'll be a UC Maresma episode where I'll talk to UC about like general design topics like growth in Finland, growth in the Tampere Disc Golf Center that he has been working on for forever, and the Worlds preview, which I'm like super stoked about. Like the season's been like flying by. My goal was 20 episodes, and I'm going to be at 12 at the end of that run. So I'm just having a blast doing it. Like I love writing. I like stitching together. It's super fun. But yeah.
Awesome. So tell everyone where they can go find it and what they need to do.
It's the Inside Line. You can find it on Stitcher. You can find it on Spotify. You can find it in iTunes. Pretty much anywhere you get your podcasts. And it's very concise, little 25-minute, like kind of newsy, like info features. Like they're meant to be like very like they're meant to be. Every minute is supposed to be like important. You know what I mean? Like I take out all the extra stuff. It's not like Smashbox, you know what I mean?
I was
just
going
gonna
to say, he's like throwing shade at us on our...
Every minute is important here.
Oh, I was going to say, when he said you've got 160 minutes to consume right now, I'm like, yeah, we do that every week. What are you talking about?
Who cares if half of it is fumbling around trying to get a guest on or something of that nature, or us like looking up someone's score or PDGA number or rating, but okay, every minute's important.
Yeah, exactly. When I looked at what I was doing when I was looking for inspiration was I looked at Smashbox and I said, how can I do the opposite of this? Like,
okay.
Many
So
podcasts have been launched with that thought.
Understandable.
Obviously, I love Smashbox. I feel really bad for people who like were expecting to hear Paige Pierce and then they have to deal with me. Like
I know. I feel terrible. We have to listen to you instead. No, I'm just kidding. No, again, her and I played a little bit of text tag, and I also just sent her another message. And so we'll see if she's in a position or other DD teammates are in a position to be able to chat with us yet tonight. We'll take them. If not, I'll have some updates from the rest of them this week as well when I get down there tomorrow.
You're going to be there in like 2 days.
Or 18 hours. So
yeah.
We'll see. All right, pal. Well, we appreciate it. We love getting some check-ins and updates from you. We want everybody to go out and find your podcast, The Inside Line, and continue to look for it. Make sure they become subscribed and download and click and Stitcher and stuff.
Listen and follow.
Like it, review, all that stuff.
Yeah, whatever. All that good stuff.
iTunes 5-star reviews.
Yeah. All right, buddy. Well, that's what we're going for. All right. Well, have a good night. It's great seeing you out on the course. I know I'll be seeing you soon here in the next few weeks at some upcoming events. And as always, looking forward to it, pal.
Thank you guys so much. Thanks, Johnny V and Terry. Always great talking to you.
Thanks,
you too,
Mo.
buddy. Take care. See ya. All right. So there we have it. Again, that is Mo, and it's so awesome to have someone that is so experienced from truly like the corporate sports coverage world. ESPN has been the gold standard, the pinnacle, the number one, major news source for sports for all of these years. We always talk about ESPN, and then to have someone that comes from that world and have him bring his experiences. It's also funny to hear him say, I work harder for less money in disc golf. And I mean, that I think can be said of a lot of our true professionals within our sport. I think a lot of people could go make more money doing things they're good at outside of disc golf, but some people are just not smart like me and Mo. So
you got to be smart like me and try to do both.
There you go. Mo just said, my wife just looked at me and was like, why are you so sweaty?
Because he's hanging out in the basement, my basement, maybe.
Maybe. All right. I think we're going to call it for our regular show. If Paige or any other DD members are able to join us, they can, quote unquote, headline our after show. And we have some giveaways. I got some sweet, sweet exclusive stuff. In fact, there is a disc or two that release in 40 minutes officially worldwide. If you're live with us at 11:20 Central, there's a couple of discs, and we are going to give one of them away tonight that you'll see in a week or two. But we'll give one away tonight in the after show if you are, of course, a Patreon supporter or you've gotten on board with our other
the other way to sign up for
methods of doing so. Just send a self-addressed stamped envelope to SmashBoxxTV. We want to thank Dana Vici for joining us, along with Mo from the Inside Line. For Johnny V, Terry Miller, the Disc Golf Guy, that's been podcast 255. We'll see you in the after show. We'll give away some good stuff and talk about golf and non-disc golf stuff. We'll see you then when you step inside the Smashbox.
Thank you to our $2 and above patrons. Your name is listed below in the credits. If you are interested in being listed as a producer in the SmashBox TV credits and supporting this and other fine podcasts, please visit patreon.com/SmashBoxxTV.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to SmashBox TV's podcast 255 After Show.
Oh.
Here we are. Happy July 9th, everyone. Still technically the 9th.
It is.
So,
technically the 9th.
I'll call it, I mean, there's no other way to call it other than heartbreaking, but crazy and very heartbreaking and unfortunate story that hit the headlines today. I'm sure there were thousands of them, but one in particular about a grandfather that seemingly held his 1-year-old granddaughter either out or near a cruise ship window and then lost grip of the granddaughter. And unfortunately, she didn't make it. Like,
it just,
and honestly, it like makes me feel all queasy inside saying it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking about it earlier, of course, mainly because I do have 2 kids myself. But I can't even fathom. There's just so many emotions on all sides, on everyone, and I don't know any more to the story. I barely heard of a headline, and then I read the headline, and that's as far as I got. Well, just. And I hate to start on like a somber note, but
seems like a silly thing to do.
It does, and again, I don't know any of the details or any other bit of the story other than the headline that I read, and someone made a post on Facebook. But that thoughts, prayers, all of that for all the families and anyone even remotely involved. That's just, I cannot fathom. Like, that's just terrible. Thinking about one thing we didn't touch on too much this weekend, or what we didn't touch on in the regular show, what I would touch on briefly is this weekend we had yet another new commentary duo.
Oh,
and
totally not where I thought you were going.
Slightly different setup to this weekend. And not just commentary, but then also I took on a role that has been talked about for quite some time, you know, both internally and externally, whether it's me or anyone. But a different setup this weekend. We had Yuli and Marty, who were both in Arizona. It sounds like they've got their booth kind of dialed in. I don't know if there were any like actual technical challenges with their booth this weekend. It doesn't sound like, I didn't hear of any.
No more than the last time.
Okay.
I mean, they if people notice, one of the things that they have when they're full screen, you can notice that the quality of the picture isn't great.
Okay.
And that boils down to the hardware that they're using. The laptop that they're using is peaking out performance-wise and causing an issue with the video quality. The audio sounds great. Great as in like for a makeshift booth. But the actual video quality isn't that great. So you notice when we go to the booth shots, I almost always put them in the picture-in-picture with the score, shrinks it up, hides a little bit of that pixeliness. And
it's an official term, folks.
That's the one I'm going with.
Pixeliness.
And so you see that. But other than that, like technology-wise, starting to nail it a little bit. A couple things obviously I want to do, but it's a matter of time, money, resources, as always. So did you see the meme that was out there?
Yes.
The baseball, football,
yes.
whatever meme
and
with the three good-looking women and then Terry in the corner.
Good-looking me. Yes,
it's a
I
disc
did see that.
golf.
Yeah, so
I got a kick out of that.
Let me be the first to say, and I know I've challenged the uncensored disc golf humor page on Facebook. I mean, most of the posts in there are incredibly
bad, horrible,
just
sexist, racist, childish,
misogynistic. Just the absolute lowest common denominator that aren't even remotely funny or humorous in. I think by anyone that has an ounce of I don't want to say brain, of moral, like they're just usually incredibly sexist and so. Again, I'm all about humor. I probably watch and attend more live comedy than anyone else that I know in disc golf. I love comedy and humor, consuming it, whatever. I try to be funny as well. But some of the stuff within that, in that specific group, it's just so bad. And if it were funny, I would be the first to commend them on it. And it's just usually not. Well, that's where I first saw the meme that had, as you mentioned, three blonde,
attractive,
we'll say stereotypically attractive,
Jesus,
women, and then like you said, mention the sports, and then it's a disc golf. You get me.
I
thought it was funny. I
agree.
genuinely thought it was funny.
I liked it because it was just that. There was no other words on it. It was not like we. Look at this, we get the fatso or something dumb like that. It just showed and let everybody read into whatever they wanted to read into it. The three other sports with the women and then Terry Miller in the corner. I chuckled at that and I was like, I that's okay for me.
The only part that I'll admit got a tad annoying was I got tagged so many times.
Oh, sure.
And I thought it was funny. It got passed around a bunch of different groups. I was mildly flattered, actually, because it was genuinely funny, and I had no problem with it. No matter how mean, like you said, how implied mean or polite mean it was, or whatever, light or dark humored, however you wanted to look at it, I was good with all of it. I truly am. I thought it was genuinely funny. It's just I kept getting tagged and tagged and tagged, and then it was in like 6 or 8 different groups, and every time it made it to a new group, I got re-tagged, and that was the only part. Again, what a problem to have, I guess, but it was funny. I appreciate it. And then I think my best line among seeing them all was, people were then making their own, basically how they arrived at it, and then I said, so what I'm reading here is, I need to dye my hair blonde. And that's and that got quite a reaction as well. So, it was, it was great. And there were a lot of people, of course, that I'll say came to my defense. Not that I, in this case, needed it.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think.
But a lot of people were very gracious and genuine and very complimentary, saying, well, at least he knows what he's talking about. Not that I don't think those other women do. But whether I was offended or not, some people in that case kind of stuck up for me. They
might be very knowledgeable in their sport, and they probably are, and most of them, sideline reporters in general, are probably well versed, but they have a leg up to get on that sideline as opposed to maybe some other people that aren't necessarily in that type of position. You don't usually see a lot of that but you do see it in some sports. I mean, you'll see sideline reporters that are men quite a bit in basketball and things like that, but it's less than what we see for recent trends. The recent trend is let's have an attractive female down on the sidelines to cut to, and disc golf can't afford that. We get Terry.
We get me. You're stuck with me, and that's what you're gonna get. And yeah, I'm totally good with that. Mike on the board says, we loved you on the course updates. Even my wife said, wow, he's really good at that. Well, thank you, Mike. And well, more to your wife. Thank you very much.
A lot of people really liked GO doing the camera work, because when he was done, everybody waited for the pan, the pan to the sky, and I would let it most time I'd let it sit there, which I do like better than the Terry walk-off screen.
Sure.
Like
I was dabbling in what the best way to end the segment was, because I never know how on top of it you are to cut away.
I'm pretty.
So I don't want
to,
and I'm guessing you are, but sometimes you're not. So I don't want to just stand there and be staring at a screen, because that's all, staring at your screen, because I don't know if I'm on air or not as I end it. So there's always that awkwardness. So that's where I know if I walk off screen or GO instead pans somewhere, then I know for sure I'm no longer on screen. But we all know there's those awkward moments when in any broadcasting industry, someone's clearly standing there on screen and they don't know if they're still on or not.
Either they're late or early. Like the camera comes to them and they're like, Joe, let me know when I'm live.
Yeah.
Joe. And you're getting that. And we've done that.
Sure.
You'll every once in a while catch, a Terry or a Steve Hill when they're usually what happens is for timing reasons. It's easier because the booth doesn't talk to the sideline reporter, so it comes to me, but the booth can see Terry. So if Terry's doing this, as soon as they see that, they know, let's throw it to Terry, and then Terry's hand goes on. So every once in a great while, you might catch Terry doing something like that, catching a 2-1. Not often, but that if you see that is why that's why he does it, so that the booth can see what's going on rather than the second or two delay of me going back and forth. But ultimately, I liked the sideline reporter. I thought it was very, it was very useful. It did exactly what we wanted to. It broke up the, and no offense to them, the monotony of the booth.
Sure.
And gave an insight onto the course. We got a couple really good tidbits, things like Kevin Jones' back, Paul Macbeth's putters, just in general, feelings on the course. That is another layer to the professionalism of the broadcast, and something that I hope we can continue to use and push on. And I think, from what I understand, Idlewild is our next live broadcast, and you're going to be at Idlewild, and while the booth is still in Arizona, so my guess is we'll continue to see that.
Yeah, and
unless I find someone better.
Please find you. Yeah, you definitely. Yeah, do that. One other side note: when I'm under the impression that it didn't really matter, that it didn't matter much. But one other side note is: at no point during the weekend did I hear a single word from the booth, as you were just kind of alluding to and saying that we don't really all communicate. So I could be repeating verbatim something they just hit on. I could be in totally a different ballpark than what they're talking about. I genuinely have no idea. Now, clearly, as we grow and develop, and if we get to that point, like you see on a typical broadcast, somebody in the booth may be talking about a topic and then specifically saying, hey, we're here at the World Series and we're noticing that the pitcher, his arm seems to really be hurting. What's going on? They throw it to the guy on the sideline or female on the sideline, and then they'll go ahead and address a specific topic. We had none of that. It was, they were talking about whatever they were talking about. It was thrown to me. I tried to come up with something at least mildly insightful, but it may or may not have been at any point related to what was going on or being said. And I'll admit, I always thought, wow, I wonder if they're talking about that. Like, did this?
I don't know.
If I give a weather update, did they just give one? I don't know. Those were the types of things that I don't know if something was just talked about. So there is a little bit of well, I'm gonna throw this at you, and hopefully it's not redundant, and hopefully it's somewhat useful to you. So I'll admit that was the one thing I was most nervous of, so to speak, in providing that update.
No, I think it was.
And as Daryl's asking, you can't listen to them via your phone. To some degree, I somewhat could, but just know that the booth and the broadcast is usually a full 30 seconds behind, 15 to 20 to 30, whatever the case is. They're always going to be behind, so I certainly can't be up to the moment as to what's going on. Again, we're talking about thousands, budgets in the thousands as opposed to budgets in the hundreds of millions when you're talking about us versus your broadcast sports. So there are a lot of limitations as to what can or can't be performed within the timing and all of those types of things. So no, I can't always know what's necessarily been going on. Terry, Mike says, Terry, you and Yuli never talk about the same things. Well, I guess that could be good or bad.
They're mostly focused on the actual golf, calling the play-by-play, talking about reasoning on why a particular player is throwing a shot where they are, or something along those lines. That's why you being on the course, talking about more of the feel of the group, the things you're noticing and seeing, all those other things really kind of add a third or fourth dimension to the broadcast. So, questions about Marty. I know I found out, I think on Wednesday that we were going to have Marty. Maybe it was Tuesday. I don't honestly recall. About that it wasn't going to be Pete. Marty reached out to me and was like, hey, I'm going to be doing this. I think he actually reached out to me earlier, and I still wasn't sure, and I followed up with him. He was very eager to know what to do and how to do it. He was nervous. He didn't want to talk over Yuli. I just told him, the less you say, probably the better. Not that I don't want his input, but I don't want people to overtalk, which is what we get sometimes when people fill the air. So the decision was made, and some people liked him and some people didn't. I mean, just as we've seen with any commentator duo, some people love Yuli, some people can't stand him. I talked to someone that's like, I can't stand his voice for commentary. He's a great guy. And I was like, cool. I heard the same thing about Nate Doss a couple weeks ago from somebody different.
Yeah.
It's just everybody has a flavor they like, and that's the way it works. So to me, every one of those arguments and discussions is a moot point, because for every person that says they love them, there's another person that says they hate them. And when Marty is concerned, Marty is the president of their local club. He's a very knowledgeable player. He just, as far as adding more information, sure, he probably could have chimed in a few more times, but he had scaled himself back based on probably some things that I had said to say, hey, just know the course, know little players. He went out and actually asked the players what they were throwing. So he chimed in with disc selection quite a bit. He was like, oh, that's so-and-so's Orange Avenger or whatever they were throwing. He had that information available, and he threw it out there at times. And I thought that was very good to be proactive. But I don't know who our booth people are going to be for Idlewild. I know it's going to be Paul. I don't know if it's going to be Pete, if it's going to be Marty, Pat,
Tom, Dick, Harry.
Yeah, I don't know. It could be his mom.
Well, and to be fair, that's a whole nother set of challenges that I think maybe, hopefully, we even kind of got swept under the rug is Yuli's only 2 live events in total. Marty is 1 live event in as he's doing this, or this is his first go at it. Like, some of us that have done it quite a few times now, whether that's a Nate and a Val or myself or a Dixon or whoever, like, there's certain things after doing it so many times, you learn the ropes a little bit more. And now we have a new combo, trying them out and just being thrown right into the mix at a course that Marty's never been to. I mean, this is, dare I say, a lot of this is just sheer resources. You know, there are only so many people that can dedicate. I mean, think about it. They were out there giving us 8 to 10 hours of their time,
starting at 5 a.m.
in Arizona. So you're talking about Friday, Saturday, Sunday on a holiday weekend, giving us 10 hours of their time. Like, that's a lot. And it's just really, really tough, and that's not an excuse, but it's really tough to find these people, and then you want them clearly in the same spot. So it's not just as easy as saying, well, we'll get one guy from one place and one person from another and then put them together, and it's going to just happen magically either. There's a lot of moving parts here. You know, a lot of people have asked, would I rather be in the booth? Do I like the sideline? I'd like to do the sideline stuff again. I enjoy being in the booth, but I also enjoy being out on the course and trying to give those insights. I don't know if I'm dead set one way or another, but as you just mentioned, someone doing sideline stuff, I definitely think can help our overall broadcast. If I'm in the booth, I'd love to have someone that we throw it to out on the sideline, and maybe I continue to be on the sideline instead. I'm not sure how that's going to all play out moving forward for sure. It's going to come down to resources. Where are we? Where is the booth? And how practical is it to have, you know, some of these different components? I will. One thing we're also, you know, this was really the first time we were doing it. What's the frequency?
To me personally, every 3 to 4 holes.
You know, after the first day, which was kind of just shooting from the hip, like, oh, now sounds like a good time, or I've got something. We were kind of on that every 3 to 4 to 5-ish holes kind of time frame. And then logistically, for days 2 and 3, Gio and I at least, said, let's do it after every 3 holes.
I like that.
Because that's just from consistency. The booth knows that. The announcers can eventually remember that. And then I know that. After every 3 holes, we have a check-in. So learning, that's really the way that this weekend went for it, is just kind of learning as we were going, and that's what we came up with. So TJ out on the board, TJ says he likes me in the booth. I appreciate that. Aaron says, you really need to pay attention to the show and not your phone. Saw you do the same thing in Europe last week. Pay attention to this show or the show that's... I'm not sure what you're referring to. For what it's worth, when I am paying attention to my phone, at least during, we'll say, the broadcast, that while we're out on the course, I'm just constantly checking scores. Non-stop. Well, occasionally, I will be posting an Instagram video or photo as well. But if I'm on my phone out on the course, 99% of the time it is either Instagram or score checking or verifying. If you're talking about here in the show, then I'm not exactly sure what you're talking about.
I know right now you've been checking for Paige Pierce.
Correct.
And it's the after show, so we're a little bit more loose where we're reading more
comments. I just make shit up now.
For that too. A couple people, Jeremy had said that they liked the summary, the Macbeth putt summary that I put together on hole 8 for hole 18. That came together in between FPO and MPO that day. It was such a close match, and Yuli and I were talking, and I made the joke that it better not come down to hole 18 because there's no way Jones can win because that basket is about 100 feet wide for Macbeth. And then I kind of thought back, I'm like, when was the last time he missed a putt on that? So I went back to UDisc. I looked at round 1 from last year where he bogeyed it. And then he birdied, or the second round, or obviously was the perfect round where he birdied. The third round he birdied to finish out, and he birdied the first round, and he birdied the second round. So thankfully, I had access to all those clips. Because most of the time when someone hits a good putt, I'll save it off as a highlight, and then it just stores. It's out in our cloud. So I pulled down those clips, threw them together, told Yuli about it, showed it to him right before we started, and I said, if it's close, we want to go to this. And Yuli's like, yeah, that's awesome. So as we're rattling through, I'm telling Yuli, this is second round from last year, third round from last year. You get the point, Yuli. And then he kind of, he went with it. And I do really want to add more. Steve Dodge said he loved that. I want to add more of that stuff if we can. And that comes along with, now that we have a lot of this footage and things like that, we can go back and look. And that's part of it. As we've been collecting this stuff, it's become my goal to be able to easily find and search this stuff. And I know I talked about it last week with the digital asset management, the big cloud that, I'm trying to create. I'm I'm renaming all of our files so they include day and event and name and circle 1 versus circle 2, drive, putt, approach, missed putt, and hole. Like, it's just a big long file name so I can quickly do a search and pull all this stuff up. And that's what this is for. So I can go through and grab this when we need it, hopefully as quickly as we can. And it'll make the broadcast better.
We know we need to do that.
We need to do that. We need to avoid all that stuff. So it's, in fact, Terry brought the grand digital database of
Pro Tour
of Pro
footage
Tour camera footage. It's over
from this year.
From this year, it's in a file, a NAS over there. When we're done with this, I'm probably going to plug it in, get GK Productions their footage for FPO, and then upload all this stuff to the cloud, and so we have a good backup. And I maybe start to go through. It's one of the things that I could really. I'm debating whether or not I want to maybe work with somebody that has some free time or an intern to start cataloging some of this stuff. And I'll get that figured out. But that sounds like an off-season project to me.
One of the cool things that we did see, and I talked about it a couple different times, I'm not sure if the live really saw it too much, but we saw the truck that was brought on site at the DGLO this weekend. It was awesome. They had a huge screen. I don't know if I'm going to guess that it was 8 feet by 16 feet, maybe. And there were 2 of them. There were one on each side of the truck, and it could be raised up. And it was just a mobile LED or I don't know what the exact technology was, but a mobile truck, a mobile LED screen or pair of screens, and then they had the live broadcast showing on that the whole time. And then when it wasn't live, they were showing, something from the previous day or whatever it might be. So there was always disc golf. So if you were anywhere near Tournament Central, you could actually see on both sides of this truck disc golf and sound that was going along with it. It was a really cool add-on that Discraft had sprung for.
That's really, really cool. I noticed it when you were doing the final interview with Paul, because in the background you could see Paul and then Paul and then Paul.
Yeah.
Little Inception action, and it was clearly a few seconds behind. But I thought it was kind of cool. I'm like, wow, I didn't realize they had something like that there. So
yeah. And spoiler, Nate Heinold of Ledgestone and the Pro Worlds loved it so much, he demanded that he finds himself one of those, and you'll see one of those at Pro Worlds probably as well.
Should be pretty cool.
So we'll continue to take the feedback. If there's something specific, I almost hate to say it, if there's something specific you want to know on the course, maybe we'll find a good way for you to reach out or to ask that. I feel like that may become redundant, though, in some of the questions that come in, or repetitive is a better word, that would come in. And, there is a fine line of how much detail do I want to give, how much of it is personal, how much isn't. Do you care about a particular disc? Was that just announced? I mean, those are all the types of things that I'm going to continue to kind of sift and wade through in terms of giving the updates out there on the course. But long and short is, I enjoyed it. I think we'll see that similar format unfold at Idlewild, and then from there, we'll have to assess and see if that's a plan moving forward.
It's really funny because I'm of 2 minds on this particular subject of having you on the sideline. On one hand, I always feel that you are probably the best interviewer on the spot that we have in the sport. Just on the spot, let's stand here, and it doesn't matter who it is, whether it's a president of Zucca or whether it's Hannah Macbeth that you want to talk to. Like, you're very good that way. So to have you there makes so much sense to me. On the other hand, I also think you're the best we have in the booth for live coverage. So I don't know where your value is more to me. If you were way better at one than the other, I would say, hey, Terry, skip the booth. We'll get somebody else in there. Let's keep you on the course. But honestly, I think you're good with both skills. So I don't know where I want to put you. And it's a problem for me.
Give it 5 years. We'll have my daughter take over one of the positions that I can't do.
She won't be in the booth. She'll definitely be on the course.
Yeah, well,
I see Allie at the course and you in the booth.
One way or another.
I was thinking we'll have my son do a cameraman, so it'll be perfect.
Perfect. Yeah.
Then you know how much money we can save on labor if we start just forcing our children to do this stuff?
That's a good call. They certainly will be working plenty hard. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And yeah, we'll continue to see where things make the most sense and how they kind of just play out. And as I admitted. Final thought. As I admitted just a moment ago, the only part about being on the course for that was I don't know that I felt like I was. That's why I was Instagramming as well, because I felt like I wanted to be doing more. I could pay attention.
You should be, yeah.
I could pay attention to what was going on for the most part. I was trying to get a little bit out of the group. I was trying to get some things not from the group. But then I also feel like, well, maybe if I did, posted a few Instagram things from time to time, that also could help just, heighten the overall presence of being out there. And that's what I was going for. And I don't know if I'll have to concentrate even more on something in the future. But I guess it depends on how often we're checking in. There was at least once, where I was like, oh, shoot, in theory, we really should check in at the end of this hole. And I was like, I don't know if I have anything like truly insightful. Like, I don't know.
You can always skip it.
I know, but.
And yes, Terry's daughter is blonde, which is why she'll be on the sideline.
Of course, good call.
That's the way it's going to go.
And she'll be great because she will be a spokeswoman for vitiligo, which my daughter has. So it'll be awesome to have her on camera and continue her confidence with her skin that has vitiligo. And she owns it, which I love. All right. Do you have a giveaway ready? Or the numbers at least?
I do. We have 207 members of the Patreon giveaway. If you want to be automatically entered into the Patreon giveaway every week, you can go to patreon.com/SmashBoxxTV, and for as little as $1 a month, you could feed a starving child, or you could feed us. I mean, I've seen the Sarah McLachlan commercials with the sad music. I don't have anything like that queued up, but I think that we could. Ultimately, I could play some and then try to, appeal to your heartstrings. But just go to patreon.com/SmashBoxxTV. Give us your money. We've earned it all by now. Just do it. Give me your money now.
Awfully demanding. All right.
Anyway,
so as of the stroke of midnight, I don't know how they argue if it's Eastern or Central, but as of the stroke of midnight is when the official releases can happen for the new Discraft Zeus.
Ooh, can I see that?
Yeah. You saw it the first time when it was called a Kong.
I have the prototype Kongs over there, but
so
I don't.
You have a Zeus,
but
now.
I don't have.
And then here is your Onyx, which might be the last time I refer to it that way, as Paul has claimed that that's how it's in fact pronounced when it was first came out. I think most of the world has most of the world has argued that it is not pronounced that way.
I think it's pronounced Annex. But
I think the whole world has said just that. And
let me see the Annex.
Paul has stated otherwise. That is Paul Macbeth, one of his signature discs. So
I like that. The rim is not too big.
No.
I was talking to Yuli. One of the commercials we have is the nuke commercial, and I was told Yuli, I said I owned nukes way back in the day. I never threw them well. I couldn't. The rim just always felt a little bit big for me, and it never fit well in my hand. And I've got a pretty large paw here, but this Onyx does feel really nice, and I'll be curious to get out and throw some at some point.
So they are releasing as of July. Oh wait, maybe it's the 12th. I don't know. Yeah, I can give it away now.
It won't get there until whenever.
I'm totally confused. Maybe sales can't happen until the 12th. So I thought I was going to be putting this up on a few of the websites tonight. I may have gotten my hands on some really, really amazing ones directly from the Discraft factory, and the release isn't just yet. I got to confirm which day that is. However, by the time this gets to you, it will be, in fact, after the deadline. So I have this beautiful disc, which will probably go for big money at some point. There's a little bit of swirlish color to the back of it. This one happens to come in at 170, 172, and handpicked from the Discraft factory. And if you're interested in getting more of the Onyx or the Zeus, I do have I have some pretty choice ones that will be possibly available come whatever the release day was. Again, I thought it was tomorrow, but maybe it's not until the 12th. Either way, they're going to get posted. I'm in the middle of cataloging and inventorying them all, and they're oh so pretty.
So we're going to give away 2 of those.
No, we're giving away one. We're going to give away this one. I just want to show this off that they're available. That's nice of me. Hey, this is already higher than normal giveaway.
It is. Were you on the show last week or no?
Yeah, I was here.
Okay. Then we gave something away.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, and I think I'm waiting on the address. And full disclosure, with me leaving for Emporia sometime mid-morning tomorrow and running my kids around, this nor any other items will not ship until next Monday or Tuesday. That will be my goal, because they're probably not going to get printed up and shipped out tomorrow. All right, so this is what we have to give away.
What number do we want to put out there?
Well, this is stickered 170 to 172, as Discraft does. So let's split the difference and go with 171.
All right, we can do 1.
1.
All right, so we have 207 entrants. You can see that right over here. I'm going to do the very first one. Generate is number 8.
As they say, 8. Random is random.
Random is random. I'm going to scroll up to number 8.
Looks like they were sorted by
first name. Andrew Clayson.
Okay. Andrew, let me comment briefly on Andrew. I don't know all of our Patreon supporters. Andrew has done work, coding and that type of work, some kind of coding and what's the other word I'm looking for? Web and coding work for myself. I think he's done some stuff for Steve Dodge and the Pro Tour. I think he's done some stuff maybe for the Next Gen Tour. Either way, anyway, you look at it, Andrew has been gracious in helping support in a number of ways. So
might be.
We appreciate the support, Andrew. Are you lost there, Johnny?
No, I'm looking. Oh, he's not. He's our second ever patron.
Wow.
Behind Kurt Rosell. It went Kurt Rosell, Andrew Clayson, Josh Graham. Those are the first 3. So
those are the cool club.
Those are the cool club. So thank you very much, Andrew. Much appreciated.
His $6,000 in Patreon money just paid off with his disc. Okay, he hasn't given that much, but we do appreciate it so much. TJ, you're a man after our heart. Onyx, Slam, let the boys be boys. Funny story. Not only do I always think of that now when I think of this silly disc, they were supposed to come to our high school, my high school.
When we were in high school.
Yeah, while we were there, that song had come out, and they were supposed to come to Appleton.
Were we in middle school or high school?
I was. You were at West. I was at East.
Okay, it was.
And they were supposed to come to Appleton East High School. Our senior year, we graduated from the same high school when they built North. So in 1994, 1995 timeframe, Onyx was supposed to come to Appleton East, and there ended up being some kind of an uproar in our little community of 60 or 70,000. And ultimately, they were not able to come perform, but somehow they were supposed.
They were banned.
Yeah, I know, but I'm trying to remember.
The adults at the time were not a fan of the rap music. It was going to drive.
Because it wasn't going to stick. The rap music. It was a fad.
The rap music was bad for the children, and they did not feel it should be done at the high school. Yeah. And so at Appleton at the time didn't really have many other venues to have a lot of live music, especially at the time Onyx was relatively big.
Mm-hmm.
Relatively, that they were playing at a high school, but
which was part of the weird thing.
Agreed. And so they canceled it. They basically said no, thank you.
And I was going to look for the exact year, which had to be like 94, 95.
Mm-hmm.
93. Okay, so that makes sense. That's ultimately when it was released on May 11th, 1993. I wonder if I scroll down on their Wikipedia, if I could ever find. Oh, I did a quick search for our city. There's no mention of Appleton, but
No, you'd have to go through the old, probably paper records from the Appleton.
I'll go
Post-Crescent.
check my microfiche.
Go run through the microfiche.
Oh my God, is that? Well, it's still a thing because I'm sure they haven't converted it at every, but eventually. I'm sure there already is a microfiche to just digital converter. They're just sliding it into a machine and just immediately turning it into a digital.
Yeah.
So the question is
cost.
how long before all microfiche is finally extinct?
I mean, it's most of the Post-Crescent goes back pretty far these days already. I've looked up old things, but anyway, that's a whole nother subject. So do we want to...
Who didn't think we'd be talking about microfiche here tonight?
This guy right here. I do think it is worthwhile, and we should talk about the social media hubbub around the Discraft Great Lakes Open tournament director.
Okay.
We saw this past week. Hannah Macbeth made a post where she screenshot a post from a private Facebook group that Paul had posted, basically saying that the TD was on a boat drinking a beer while the course was not finished, and that Paul and probably others were helping string OB lines, put up the T signs and things of that nature. And it created a stir, as most things do. If there's something to get upset about, there's going to be people up there getting upset. And I kind of have a take in that, ultimately, much like everything, the final product, the tournament director is responsible, regardless of what happens. But I don't know, and I don't know if anybody really knows the details as to who was in charge of these things. Because clearly, the tournament director isn't doing all of this by himself. There are volunteers. There are people that this was assigned to. So I have a hard time getting out the pitchfork for this gentleman when it could be an issue with volunteers not showing up, not being, or being confused, maybe not knowing whose job is what. And again, ultimately, it all rolls down to the TD because he is the head of the organization that is running this event. So they do not get off scot-free by any means. But before we get our torches and pitchforks, I just want everyone to kind of take a step back and think, like, whose fault is it? Maybe things didn't happen because volunteers didn't fail to show up. Maybe things happened. There could be other circumstances behind that. Now, it's a bad look, no matter what. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. But ultimately, I wasn't on site, and I don't have all the insights that you have, Terry. Did you see anything outrageous or when you showed up, or I know you showed up late the night before the event.
Yeah, I actually showed up on the 4th, which was Thursday, and I showed up at midnight or 1 or 2 in the morning, so I was of no value at that point. But nothing, when I got there, nothing was out of place. Now, of course, that was day 1, and that's when the event was starting. The question is, everything you said, but then what I'll throw in addition to all of that is, this is somewhat of a unique situation in the fact that the entire course is I hate to call it a temporary course, but it is. It's a semi-permanent, semi-temporary course. It's a temporary course. It is not, if you go there today, the course doesn't exist. Those tee pads aren't there. Those baskets aren't there. That course is not there for you to play. There are, I think, either 1 or 2 other disc golf courses in that park, but you would not be able to
toboggan.
you would not be able to go play the toboggan course. And so I think they said they start mowing various parts of it in May to get it ready for the June US ADGC. And then, of course, a few weeks later here, hosting the Pro Tour event. But then the course is taken back out of the ground. So it's in for a couple months at most out of the year. And that then, kind of goes to another point of seeing our players on the FPO side, every single hole pretty much. It was Sarah Hokum. On the MPO side, almost every single hole, it was Chris Clemens that were both sweeping the tee pads. They're rubber tee pads. Some people love them. Paul McBeth specifically, at one point I heard him say he doesn't love concrete. He doesn't think we should be throwing from concrete, but he'd love to see something, I think, a little bit more permanent at that course. And I think the Parks Department is open to that concept. What that material ends up being, who knows? So from my perspective, just arriving day of, things were fine. Now, whether it's PDGA requirements or Pro Tour requirements and or park restrictions or not, when other stuff is up, clearly should be up more than one day before the event. Like you said, though, I didn't get an exact story other than lots of rumors and a lot of, I'll say, mudslinging from all sides and finger pointing, not passing the blame, but just finger pointing. Well, this person did this or this person didn't do that. And that's not from just the TD's perspective, but from a number of areas. So I can't pinpoint it. I wasn't really on an investigative hunt. I didn't hear enough to draw any formal conclusions. But I think it is fair to say, if you come out to a Pro Tour event or an A tier or an NT, and you're out there at 8 a.m. on the day before a tournament happens, you would love to see and should see every single piece of that tournament set up the day before. I think that is in the PDGA requirements. I'm going to look at the PDGA standards right now.
And what the standards say and what I feel clearly could be two different things.
Well, yeah, you could be wrong, as usual.
I think that OB should probably be laid out by that day.
For sure.
I don't necessarily know if you need to have the temporary T signs out there that day. Or maybe the we'll say, the Savage Wall put up by that day. There are certain course assets that maybe, at 8 a.m.
Do you need a Zucca truss on hole 3 set up? No.
What if the basket wasn't elevated on hole 2?
That's a great question.
I mean, what constitutes? Because if you're looking at what's possibly and what we saw on the first day, storms. What if the storms were on the day before the event and it was raining? Do you want to put out your temporary T signs or all the walls so they can just get warped and wet? Now, again, I think OB should be laid out there. But here's the other thing I'll say. So much of this could have been avoided with a really good caddy guide, of which I didn't or couldn't find one online.
Okay.
If you walk up to...
And one, for what it's worth, one could have been emailed to every competitor. You don't know that
correct.
One wasn't.
I don't know.
You couldn't find one personally.
I could not find one online anywhere because I wanted it for the broadcast. I thought, cool, maybe I'll grab some of the pictures of the holes and things like that. I wanted to find out what the course changes were. Because I had asked Steve Dodge, I said, oh, hey, what course changes were there? And he's like, oh, there was some added OB and a couple changes with some baskets. And I had these new hole previews, the new drone shots, that had no information on them that CCDG was wonderful to get. And I had the old ones from last year that had all the graphics on them. And I thought, well, if there's really not many changes, then I'll just use the old ones. And it hurt me to listen to Paul and Marty talk about these courses, these holes, and have the distances wrong or the par wrong on the graphics versus what was true. And so I was disappointed that there wasn't more information out there for spectators, for me, who, obviously I'm a unique case where I want it for this, but if I were just to go out there, or I wanted to take a look at, hey, let's see what this course these guys are playing, that should all be out there, I think. I think a minimum you should have is probably a whole list with distances. So if I'm, and I'm going to use his name, Andrew Fish, who was one of the big people that brought this to light as far as not being prepared the day before. If I'm going there with a course, with a caddy guide, and I say, this is where the tee pad is, I can COB. It might be, I might not have the course, the sign, the thing to the next hole, that set up. There might not be a tee sign here, but I know what it is because I have it in my caddy guide. I think I can let that slide then. And if maybe those are getting put up that day or later that day, or, maybe even worst case scenario, the morning of the event, someone's going there at 7 a.m. before the first tee and just popping in all of the whole signs.
Yeah, and again, it depends on what else is or isn't available.
Correct.
And how tough do you want to make any player work for it? Because if you go out, I'll say at a course like Toboggan that doesn't have a permanent, tee sign, if you go out there and you get done with one hole and then you're searching all around to find where the next tee is, and then be like, oh, okay, yeah, this is hole 13's tee. Wait, is this the short tee or the long tee? Let me check the guide. I mean, it would just be so much easier to walk up and there be a tee sign. Of course, it would be. Of course.
But, I mean, there are some holes that have two tees, one for men, one for women. How do I know which one I'm supposed to? I mean, how much information should be on the tee sign? The hole and distance, does it have to label every single division that's playing?
It does. Those do.
They should. But what, again, here's a big beef I have with a lot of events. Your websites suck. And that goes for Pro Tour events. That goes for some National Tour events. That goes for A tiers. That goes for B tiers. There should be, after B tiers I can almost get away with because, you don't necessarily need a great website for a B tier. But I'm sorry, A tiers, NTs, Pro Tours, Majors, get your shit together and get a good website. And right now, I'm looking at you, Idlewild. Like, I went to the Idlewild site. You got 3 weeks. And I talked to somebody in the local Cincinnati club, and they were going to bring it up. And I know a lot of this is manpower. It's volunteer stuff because no one's getting paid for this stuff. But I wanted to go to the Idlewild site and start getting prepped for our show in 3 weeks. There was a course map, just literally a map with all the holes.
That's all you just asked for.
There wasn't even. I searched that website. You couldn't even find out what city or where the course was. It was just called Idlewild. Now, I would have to go to a whole nother site, find out where Idlewild Disc Golf Course is. You go to the event schedule, it was blank. Yeah, I don't know if I'm playing.
Sounds like things are open-ended.
It's clearly it's things like this that I want. I went to the Pro Tour website for Idlewild, and a lot of that information is not there. These are things that if we want to grow our sport, if we want spectators to take us seriously and say, hey, I'm thinking about going to Idlewild. It's like an hour's drive. Let me check and find out when when tee times are, and maybe not even, obviously we don't know when specific players are, but that's fine. But just a schedule of events. Thursday, there's a clinic. Friday, there's this, tee times start at 8 a.m. None of it. I would love it if, I don't think it's a requirement to have gorgeous tee sign caddy books like USDGC does, but ultimately I would love to see that. Yeah, go ahead and Terry, click on event schedule once. Whoops, nothing there. It's unfortunate that I think some of our biggest and best events, there are things that we're still
like the internet though, bro.
We're still dropping the ball in some really basic things. And I think as a...
It's right here. Burlington, Kentucky.
Where does it say it?
Right there.
Oh, in the tiny map of the entire Pro Tour. I think we need to get our act together if we want to truly grow the sport. And yeah, exactly. You had to go to another website to find it. But
sounds like you just uninvited yourself to Idlewild, bro.
I'll
let you know how it is.
Good. It's such a great event. It's such a wonderful course. I just need people to be able. I want other people to be able to find our sport and make it easy for them, and I don't feel like we're doing that. And again, I'm just calling out Idlewild because they're the next one. DGLO, go to GreatLakesOpen.com, and I think the website was from 2015.
I'm gonna check it out.
Okay, you do that, and you tell me. Anyway, it's I looked it up. I think I Google searched it. I got I think I got something from 2015.
Use the
actually, I
Wayback
think I went to
Machine.
UDisc. UDisc had the tournament website up there, and that pointed to it. And maybe that's how I found it.
Well, at any rate, so Johnny's long and short of it. The take is, let's try to
Up
get
our
all
game.
of the pertinent, at least the minimum is the pertinent information that needs to be updated. Make sure that's out there for all to find. Now, I will quickly quote the PDGA Tour Standards that talks about requirements, and this says for national tours. So knowing that the Pro Tour events are on par, some ways exceed, whatever, on par with the national tour. Here is one quote from the tour standards found on the PDGA page. It says, national tour courses are now required to be set up for the first round configuration a minimum of 3 days prior to the start of an event. Start of the event means the morning of the first day of competition. So a 3-day, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, NT would need to have its courses ready for practice no later than Tuesday morning.
Okay, there is gray area there. Does it say I have to have the OB line strung?
First round configuration.
Is that the basket configuration? Is that, again, is that if I'm going to raise the basket, does that have to be there 3 days prior? Does that, there's a little bit of gray area there. And I understand they want the course probably identical to how the players are going to play it. I can read into that and say that. But, I mean, does the Mando sign have to be up on the tree?
In theory.
If I look at my caddy guy and I say, oh, cool, there's a Mando tree. I think it's that one.
Yeah, I mean, it says first round configuration, so I would assume that the Mando sign should be up.
I would assume that as well. I'm just throwing shade in general and just questioning it.
So, there you have it, folks. And Sam Martin says, I read in expanded version that, yes, the raised baskets and such. Adam says there's no gray area. Says set up how first round would play. So, and clearly everybody can interpret those things a little bit differently, but I think that is in fact the premise, and the idea is if you went out and played it on Tuesday morning, it's in the configuration you would see it on Friday morning.
How about those little triangles in front of the T-pad that say PDGA, Savage? Do those have to be there? Because that's part of the course. If I hit that with my disc, if I try to lay down a roller and I shank it and hit one 15 feet in front of me, or if I'm practicing and I'm trying to throw a forehand roller 3 days before the event, but I walk up, and they decide to put those up the day before the event, and I haven't practiced that, is that something I need to worry about?
Well, I know for a fact that a few years ago at one particular event that I shall not name, they had flags, feather banners placed in one position on an 18th hole. They had them placed in one position for practice, which eliminated a route, or vice versa. Maybe they weren't there and then they put them there for the day, or they were there and they eliminated one or the other, whatever. The point is they moved a feather banner that was near a tee that then changed what your options were even on that hole. Like you could not take that route, in one of the configurations, and when they moved it, you certainly could. And it was different literally the day before. I mean, I would think those are things that the players would hope are solidified.
I understand,
ahead
but
of time.
Again, those little triangles that are in front of those little that we see that have awesome sponsors on them, and thank you for all our sponsors that put those stuff out there. But I would not expect to see those out there 3 days before the event.
Yeah, and it's really tough because when you think about, and we call them course assets,
Yep.
as you're mentioning, whether it's the raised basket and the triangular thing that's beneath it, or you're talking about the boards that are below it, or feather banners. Some of those things we all know are safer in some parks than others, and you may not practically be able to go set up some of those things on a Tuesday and expect them to truly remain there Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Some of those need to be set up one day, taken down, and then put back up. It all depends on the community and the area that you're in. That's just dare I say, a whole nother set of questions that I don't have an answer for as to when those individual pieces need to be either out or not. Because I'll tell you, every time we leave a course at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock on a Friday night, knowing there's golf to be played the next morning, and I know that if somebody really wanted certain things, they could find a way to go capture them or swipe them from the course, it makes me cringe. Like, I hate that. I mean, we're out in a public property. We're not locking down like you find on most golf courses. We're on public property more often than not. And some of these things that are very valuable in to either the sponsor themselves or, literally or figuratively valuable, I hate that they get left out. But it's not practical to take them down and set them back up 19 different times over a 6-day period.
I agree. We just don't have the manpower or woman power. We don't have the volunteer power for it. And am I getting nitpicky? Of course. But ultimately, that's what we're going to end up seeing. And when we can't lock this stuff down, what type of risks do we want to take?
All right. Well, we'll move off of that to Darren asks, any spoiler-free thoughts on Stranger Things?
Haven't seen it yet.
I can give you a really good spoiler. I can't because I've never seen a single episode. So
you'd like them so much, though.
Yeah, maybe. I have not seen any.
Next
so you don't have to worry about me spoiling
next
it for you.
overseas trip, just download season 1 and watch it. I'd have already watched it right now, but my wife insisted that we start the final season of Jessica Jones. So I've got like 2 episodes left on that. And I would rather watch Stranger Things because Jessica Jones right now is kind of meh. It's actually not bad. But it's hard right now to avoid internet spoilers. I don't have to worry about Jessica Jones internet spoilers. It's been out for months. I have to worry about Stranger Things spoilers. So, but hopefully by next week I'll have watched a majority of it. Usually I can get through 1, maybe 2 episodes a night with the wife. And I have to watch it with her. Just the way it works. We all know this problem.
All right. Yellowstone, Johnny, chime in on that.
Haven't heard of it?
I've heard of it, but I have not watched it. I have no idea what it is. I just know I've heard it. Seems to me that the live views of the weekly show keep getting higher and higher every week on Tuesday nights. Yeah, they fluctuate. I think we've seen anywhere from
high 90s on some
to the
really off nights, but up to like 300-400.
400. I think an average of somewhere around 180 to 200-ish seems to be kind of the recent average. Yeah, love to have everybody here.
We love to have every single person watch, whether you're downloading or watching on YouTube or however you want to consume the podcast. We are always happy to have listeners.
Most of them.
As long as you agree with us. That's what we say.
I feel like I had at least 1 or 2 topics that were not even disc golf related, but I don't recall what they are, and I didn't write them down earlier today.
Patreon related real quick. The t-shirts for this quarter are ordered. Miles says that they are packaged up. I have an email right here. Everything's shipping, so it should be to your place in 7 to 10 days. So those are done. Let me know what you think. I'm getting a handful of them here. They'll probably be for sale once I have them. So I'll either give them to Terry so he can sell them because he tends to deal with all that, or we'll figure something out.
G's3 says, can we talk about how crazy fast the Cloudbreaker sold out? Yeah, I mean, it's a highly anticipated disc. Here's what I'm going to say, and I kind of politely danced around it with Dana when we opened the show tonight. It sounds as if a lot of the Discmania releases, being a growing company, I'll be as PC as possible here, it sounds like they've had their growing pains with some sizable or sought-after releases. Will they get it figured out? Yeah, probably.
Is it
but
their fault?
By golly,
I don't know.
I'm sick of everyone losing their damn minds that they didn't get a disc, and then they followed up and say how mad they are at Discmania. I get it. It's a sought-after disc. People really want it, and people are trying to get their hands on them, and there's very limited supply. And it just sounds like, if you read any reviews out there, there are a lot of very unhappy people because they're not getting the latest and greatest. And I can understand it, but there was a flood, whatever day that was, there was a flood of very, very disgruntled people.
There's a couple ways to look at it. Someone that says marketing strategy. Sure, there is one way to say, limit the supply will up the demand and up the value of them. Because I guess what? When you get these cloud breakers in your hand, they're probably going to go for 2 to 3 times what you bought them for.
At first.
Yeah, for a couple weeks.
Right now, yeah.
And so some people are going to be able to flip them and make some decent cash. Now, the other thing I'm thinking is, someone said 800 on the website. There were only 800 for sale. Let's just say they were 1,000. If you're only making 1,000 and the demand is 5,000, I would hope that, I would maybe think that UC would have known that the demand was going to be high. Maybe he couldn't get any more than that based on the fact that they are still using and will continue to use other manufacturers to make their discs. This is an Innova made product. So this is being made at one of the Innova molding areas. It's still one of their classic lines. So maybe Innova didn't have the resources or the time to fulfill the amount with the other plastic that they're doing. I mean, there's a chance at that. And this is all they could get.
Which I believe to be the case.
More than likely. But I mean, I can't say for sure. Or if UC just thinks, hey, we don't want to overflood the market. We don't want to order, 1,500 of them and then only sell 1,300. I don't think that's the case because I think they have a general idea now based on some of the other sales, especially when you have personalities like Eagle and Simon who are very good at selling plastic. They're not quite Paul Macbeth level, but you put a disc in Eagle's hands and Eagle says, hey, this is going to go far, you're going to get a good response. So that should be the case. I think I said this the other day when I joked around with Yuli on the booth that every time Macbeth pulls out a disc, he should call it a Raptor. Like he's putting with his Raptor, he's approaching with his Raptor, because that would sell a lot of discs for Yuli, whose name is on the Raptor. And Yuli got a chuckle out of that, and you just know that certain people can sell plastic, and I'm hoping that with UC's expanded manufacturing process now that they will be able to fulfill this demand so we don't run into this in the future, because it does suck for people, and it's going to suck for people that now some people are going to want it and going to pay extra for it when they maybe didn't have to because they didn't get in on the early release. Me personally, I don't buy into that.
Spoiler alert, no one disc is going to change your life.
This one might.
No.
It's called a cloud breaker.
No one disc is going to change your life.
It keeps the rain away.
And I know they're like, it's all marketing, and I'm not an idiot to this, but
no.
People, honestly, some people have acted like this is
I wonder how many people
packet of super special oxygen that's going to keep them breathing.
I wonder how many people
it's not
want to buy it or are upset they couldn't buy it because now they can't flip it.
Yeah, I'm mad.
Yeah.
That I didn't get my hands on any.
I mean, it's the nature of our business right now. And it's, it's not like UC could really wait to release them. I mean, he could have said...
Yeah, he could have. But they're already getting pressured because they've been talking
They've
about
been- it's
releasing
been
them
pushed-
forever.
Yeah, they've been releasing it, waiting to release them forever. So now let's just say the next batch comes in September, like Dana said. Would you really want to tell someone, it's July. We're going to release them in 2 more months. You'd have people livid. So you have to weigh the pros and the cons, and it sucks to be in UC's position.
I've of course, and this has nothing to do with Discmania. I'd say this of any disc. It's not going to change your life. It's not going to change your game. You're not going to get a million aces with it. It's just a disc. If you sucked or suck currently, this disc is not going to make you suck less.
It might.
No.
It might.
No, you're still going to suck.
Yeah, but you might suck a little less. I mean, the odds are against it, but you might. You might find this might be the one disc that finally, that
makes you good.
That if you're dead set on throwing Discmania, and you're like, I really need a disc that just does this, and this is the one disc, it could help you out. It might make you suck a little less. It might make you suck a little less.
Yeah.
Now, of course, I think if you're that serious, you delve into other plastic, other companies. If you really need something, I'm glad if you're diehard Discmania. Awesome.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying
No, I know, and you're not saying that. I am.
In general, I'm saying I think it's great people are anticipating. I think it's great people are getting excited over it. But for God's sakes, you're not going from a 9-10 or an 8-10 rated player, and you're not increasing your player rating by 100 points,
or even 10 points,
or probably even 10, because this thing is in your bag or exists. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that's what's that's not going to happen. So wait for it, or pay a bunch of money now, and that's fine too. I'm not opposed to people doing that. If you really want it and you feel like you need one, by all means, go pay the insane
$125. Somebody said right now.
Sure, and I'm good with that too. That's free market. That's capitalism. Do whatever you want. I'm totally good with that. I'm just gonna ruin it for you and tell you you're not gonna become a much better golfer because of it. So,
and I'll say this: if you have them, flip them right now. Get the money out of them, because in September, when they release 700 more or 800 more of this exact same disc, that value is going to drop real fast. So
they should clearly be releasing
you got them,
tens of thousands of them is what they should be doing if they're really this sought after. And then speaking quickly of releases, so the Kong by Discraft has been renamed.
Yep, the Zeus.
To the Zeus.
We talked about that.
You did?
I think we talked about it last week or the week before.
So,
because I think we talked about it the week you weren't here, because I'd said, I like the name. I like the Zeus name better than Kong. It fits along with his Luna, with the Onyx. It's a very mythical theme, and I'm good with that. There are certain mythical names you're not going to get. You're not going to ever get the Pegasus. You're probably
you could.
You want to pay someone a lot of money probably, because I think that's an Innovadisc.
We've seen the same disc renamed and put on other disc names.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if the
X2 is made by both Prodigy and Discraft.
I suppose if it's an OOP disc,
even if it's not.
I don't know.
Well, I think we've talked about this. Who's
to stop you?
Yeah, who's to stop you?
That's a valid point. But
the PDGA is not in the business
but there's
of your naming.
Correct. But I will say there's enough mythical creatures where you should never have to worry about that. You've got all sorts of Greek and Roman mythology. But I like the theme. I like the name. I like the change in name over the Kong. And I know Kong was also a dog disc, so there was rumors that might have played a role in it. Whether Discraft or Paul admit it or not, I don't know. But the Kong is like a dog frisbee, and that maybe there was a little bit of stepping on toes there that could have brought some litigation. And I honestly know nothing.
Did Judge Judy get involved?
She
that'd
did
be
not,
awesome.
although that would be awesome. But there was some rumors, and that it just clears it up a little bit better. So I do like the new Zeus name.
Is Is Judge Wapner still alive?
No.
No?
No.
You're
he's not.
sure?
I am sure.
Oh, died just 2 years ago. Too soon.
I remember that.
Judge Wapner, previously, of course,
Stop.
of the People's Court.
I don't know when that popped up. Hold on.
When what?
Hold on. All right, good. I ran out of recording space on my computer because I forgot to delete the DGLO files, and so I had hundreds of gigs of data on there that I had to get rid of. So the recording stopped on the podcast.
Oh, so you don't want anyone to miss any of my insightful.
I didn't want anyone to miss your insightful Judge Wapner information.
I was going to say because everyone was still live following along.
Yeah, no, everyone was live. We didn't lose that. Just the recording stopped. I had to just quickly free up a little bit more space.
Well, with that, I don't have anything else, and if you don't,
Okay.
we can call this.
We can call it tonight.
Hope your ratings went well. Hope you sucked less than you used to, if that's what you're trying to do. I literally did not check mine now. Now I feel like I do have to, just for
you
giggles.
haven't played an event.
No, but things can change somehow. I'm going to guess. Oh my gosh. Has not changed since February. Still rated 962. I haven't played any sanctioned events since February in Koh Samui. Oh, I thought I did. What do I know?
If it weren't for my son's birthday party this weekend, I would go play Manitowoc in the park. But
You should.
I got some priorities.
Sounds like wrong ones. All right, guys. Appreciate you guys joining us. Thank you so much. As always, all of our regulars. I see so many of you out there. TJ, thank you, TJ. We know you're here every week. Ryan, Sam Martin, and a few others, but so many of you guys are regulars, and we appreciate each and every one of you regular, whether you're regular or not. For Johnny V, Terry Miller, the disc golf guy, sorry, it does not look like it happened with Paige Pierce tonight. Unfortunately, her and I played a little bit of text tag, and I know she had a long day of travel, so it did not seem to go down like we thought it would. But we'll hear from her soon. She'll keep winning or win more big events.
Just get an interview with her this week.
Yeah, we'll put it out there for the whole world to see. For Johnny V, Terry Miller, disc golf guy, that's DGLO and Mahmoud and lots of fun stuff. Podcast 255. We'll see you next week when you step inside the Smashbox.